Chapter 8:10. Yun Nuoshing sighed and said something that sent chills down everyone's spines. Erasing this world from its roots might wake up the billions of souls that provide energy for this world. However, the person who created this world and thought of such a unique method to stabilize a world that has already collapsed must be at least a deity. God, why is it a deity again? Yun Nuoshing covered her head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. She seemed to have encountered too many deities recently. The good news is that this deity, its condition is not very good. It is very weak, and it is using some special method to maintain this world. Let us ask someone more professional to explain this news. After that, Yun Nuoshing turned around and nudged Zai, who had been in a daze, forward. Zai was stunned as well, and then glared at Yun Nuoshing with hidden bitterness. He coughed lightly and said, "The cultivation of the post-god tier. I used to follow the Shadow Emperor, who was a post-god tier elite, so I know a little about it. The existence of that realm is more focused on comprehending the origin energy. The power of the natural order, the power of the origin, the power of the world, the power of time, the power of space, and other energies that originally existed in the world and have not undergone any evolution are collectively known as the origin energy. Little Star knows a little about it. His spirit-receiving divine body is close to the origin energy of the world, but the latter is just a general term for the normal powers. For example, the power of the stars in his body is derived from the origin energy of the world, and the original vitality, elemental energy, immortal energy, and demonic energy are all secondary forms of the origin energy of the world. Continuous condensation and qualitative change is the cultivation of a cultivator, but only the power of the stars is the closest to the origin energy of the world. The two have similar names, but they represent different things. The cultivation of a deity focuses on sensing the former, and in the last major stage of cultivation, the final compression of the divine energy into a power that surpasses the origin energy of the world, divine power, which is more powerful than the power of the stars. That is it. The next cultivation direction is to comprehend the origin energy and temper the godly right. The latter is very difficult, but for the former, there is no better way to comprehend the origin energy than to create a world. In the process of creating a world, one can comprehend the birth of a new world bit by bit. If one world isn't enough, then create two. When the comprehension of the origin energy is complete, the godly right will also rise and reach a level, heavenly deity. Yun Nuoshing murmured and scratched his head. This was the first time he had heard about the cultivation method of the gods. Zai nodded, then smiled inexplicably. Now you know why there were so many small worlds in the Antiquity Age and the Far Antiquity Age. They were all created by a large group of gods in order to comprehend the power of origin. Some of them even evolved into complete star regions, becoming a world associated with the 8 elemental realms. There are very few of these perfect worlds. Most of them are small worlds or continents. Developing a perfect world requires an unimaginable amount of effort, and the benefits obtained from it are much greater than the latter, but the time required is also countless times more. Now, as the gods have gone into hibernation, those small worlds have reached the end of their useful life. Many of them have collapsed naturally, and some have been destroyed by others. Without new small worlds to supplement them, they have gradually become ruins. The small worlds that still remain in the realm of the gods are either newly created by the dormant gods, or left behind many, many years ago. I once heard of a saying, when a god can develop the most complete world, where the sun and moon shine together, the stars shine brightly, and the starry sky is boundless, he can ascend to the highest position of heavenly deity. Zai raised a jade finger in front of her red lips and smiled mysteriously. Everyone looked at each other, and their faces were more or less blank. That stage was still too far away for them, and they could not imagine what it would be like to reach that stage. Zai was stunned by the dazed look on everyone's faces, and she realized that she had strayed too far from the topic. She quickly cleared her throat and continued, "If there is a problem during the creation of a world, there is a most powerful but also the most costly method, fusing one's own origin with the world that one has created. The two are originally one, and this way the small world can be restored. This kind of fusion, whether it is the fusion of one's body or the fusion of one's soul, is not a problem. The former is more powerful, while the latter is less effective. However, no matter which method is used, once the origin is fused, the small world will be bound to the Creator's body. Whether the world collapses or the Creator dies, they will both be involved." Zai's pale purple eyes looked around hesitantly, and she frowned slightly. "I don't know what method the Creator of this world used to maintain this world, but other than these two methods, there is no way to restore it. Just as Little Star said, if this is really done, and the world has not stopped collapsing, the Creator should be very weak, so weak that it would be difficult for him to maintain the existence of this world, and he had no choice but to use other souls to support it." Chu Yingzhan ran her fingers through her long hair, and after thinking for a while, she raised her hand and looked at Yun Nuoxing. "The good news is that this god is very weak now. What about the bad news?" Yun Nuoxing was hugging her arms, and when she heard this, she could not help but tilt her head and glance at her silently. That helpless look in her eyes made the latter blush, and she could not help but grind her teeth. "The bad news is that we can't use any power here. If we want to destroy this world, we will need power, right?" Before she could pounce over and bite Yun Nuoxing coughed dryly and said, "Or we can find the carrier of this small world from the outside world. It could be an inch of space, or it could be an inconspicuous carrier. For example, the tree branch on the Xian Long continent. However, if we destroy it from the outside, we will not be able to break it without an equal amount of power. If we can find a loophole in the small world, we will be able to destroy it with an all-out attack from an emperor god. Then, here comes the problem. According to the rules of this subworld, everyone is immortal, and our power has been sealed to the point that there is not even 1% of it left. How can we destroy it?" Chu Yingzhan was about to open her mouth and say something, but after thinking for a while, she nodded gloomily. This was also a problem. There was not enough power to destroy it from the outside, and there was not enough power to destroy it from the inside. I won't talk about the third method, it is even more difficult. Yun Nuoxing scratched his head in distress. After he received the news, he had thought through all these things, and he was more distressed than anyone else. Chu Yingzhan hit the back of Yun Nuoxing's head with a karate chop and said in a bad mood, "Say it, there is one more bad news." Yun Nuoxing glared at her. After hesitating for a while, he nodded and said, "If we help that weak creator to complete the evolution of this world, we might be able to free those souls and complete the evolution of this world. Then, this phenomenon of collapse will naturally stop. This incomplete world, and its creator did not fix the current scale of this world, which caused this phenomenon of collapse. It was that brainless creator who wanted to create a complete world in one go, but as he was creating, his brain suddenly shut down. Then, the entire world went out of control and began to collapse." Chu Yingzhan nodded. "Theoretically, yes." Yun Nuoxing rolled his eyes. Chu Yingzhan took a deep breath and said, "Then let's discuss how to destroy the world." Hearing this, everyone nodded, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. The third method was really too difficult. It required the support of trillions of souls. Although these souls were still very weak, it was still a very large number. Such a large number could only slow down the speed of the world's collapse. How many souls would it take to complete the creation? "Little Star, where did you learn so many secrets?" Xian suddenly whispered into Yun Nuoxing's ear. Hearing her ask this, Yun Nuoxing's cheeks cramped, and a vein popped out on his forehead. After a while, he took a deep breath and said, "A certain crazy crystal often instills a lot of things into me when I am sleeping and meditating. She has already turned my brain into mush. How can I not know?" Xian made an "oh" sound and didn't ask what the crystal was. They discussed on the spot for a long time. Even Zai and Yi Shi spread their hands to show that they were at their wits' end. This kind of discussion was no different from talking nonsense. If they didn't call for a division of soldiers to help, no one would be able to do anything about this world. I don't understand. Why did this bastard make such a world? Fine, it's for cultivation. No, this thing is all broken, right? It's all broken. Can't he just give up and make a new one? It's so troublesome. As they walked back, Chu Yingzhan kept nagging. It sounded like she had a lot of grievances. It wasn't clear whether it was because she was also trapped here or because of some other reason. Yun Nuoxing helplessly took a deep breath and said, "He's so bored, everyone." They spent more than 3 hours running over with curiosity. On the way back, each and every one of them looked like they had a lot on their mind. They wandered in the wilderness step by step and didn't notice that the sky was dyed red. It wasn't until Ming woke up and cried out in surprise. He pulled Yun Nuoxing and started running. Only then did everyone get rid of their heavy hearts and run towards the city in the distance. It wasn't until the dusk faded and the night lazily hung itself in the sky that Yun Nuoxing and the others ran to the edge of the city. The entire mountain city was wrapped in a neat circle of mountain basins. The surrounding mountains were hundreds of feet high. Spiraling streets spread out from the city in the center and wound out along the mountain range. Walking on a very wide street, along the winding mountainside into the city, Yun Nuoxing and the others were shocked at first when they saw the four-wheeled vehicles flying past them. Later, they got used to it and turned a blind eye to it after a few glances. On the other hand, little Bing Er still looked at them curiously. Her gaze followed the movement of the carriages until they disappeared from her sight. Then, she looked for a new target to observe. When the four-wheeled metal objects whizzed past in front of her again, Yun Nuoxing couldn't help but think of Serene. He also had 4 wheels, but it seemed to be different. Until now, he still couldn't see how they moved. Perhaps it was because he had something on his mind, so he didn't pay much attention to these things. He followed Ming around the bustling streets that shone with all kinds of lights and stopped in a relatively quiet area. Yun Nuoxing glanced at Ming curiously. Their appearance was strange and only attracted some attention. However, Ming looked like an angel. According to ordinary people, this kind of appearance shouldn't be seen often. However, he didn't attract any attention. He was already mentally prepared to be surrounded by a lot of eyes. It was a habit. Upon hearing Yun Nuoxing's curious question, Ming stretched his wings and explained seriously, "The light on my body has a cognitive impairment effect on ordinary people. It's difficult for ordinary people to see my true appearance. Even if they see it, they will quickly forget it. However, it won't have such an effect on you, big brother." Unlike the brightly lit streets, Ming led Yun Nuoxing and the others to a relatively quiet area. It was a distance away from the bustling street. There were also several tall buildings standing here. They were about 100 feet tall, but there were only sparse lights, or rather lights. There should be very few people living here, so it was a little cold and desolate. "We, the group of sober souls, have lived here since the beginning. After a day of life, we will gather in the garden of the community and chat about insignificant things. If there are any special discoveries, it's convenient for us to communicate. At least, it was like this in the beginning," Ming sighed. "Have they all moved their positions now?" Yun Nuoxing looked up at the sparse lights on each building and could roughly guess this. Ming nodded. She was given the title of captain, but she did not know how to manage this small team. In fact, she did not even know what she should do. Her companions probably did not want to face a cold-faced captain every day, so they could not stand it anymore and moved out. Seeing the gloomy look on this girl's pretty face, Yun Nuoxing guessed what she was thinking. He reached out his hand and rubbed her head. Even he did not know what to say. She had become a stranger to him. It would take some time for her to return to the original energetic girl. The process of going upstairs was inexplicable. To Yun Nu Oshing, it was as if he was locked in a strange box with a metallic luster. Then, Ming Ming pressed the number drawn on the wall, and a slight feeling of excess weight came. Then, he was dumbfounded. He looked at the metal box with a face full of question marks and the number jumping on the top of the box. He felt slightly uneasy and could not help but say, "This won't be thrown into the starry sky, right?" When he said this, Ming staggered and hit his head on the metal wall. When he came back to his senses, he finally could not help but give his brother, who had a wild imagination, a smack on the head. He said angrily, "Big brother, just treat this as a short-distance space passage. I won't throw you into space." Yun Nuoshing rubbed his head in confusion. He could not help but look around. Xian, Chu Yingzhan, and the others were relatively calmer. They were not as curious as he was. They all thought that since it was a world they did not know, it would not be strange for anything to happen, right? When the group came back to their senses, the metal box slowly stopped. The door opened to both sides. Ming was the first to step out, and Yun Nuoshing and the others quickly followed behind him. On the left side of the narrow passage, there was a thin layer of glass. They were currently on the top floor of this magical building. Looking down from here, they could see half of the city. Lights were intertwined, and all kinds of colors colored the dark night. There were also many strange things flying around the spacious streets, making a lot of noise. Yun Nuoshing suddenly noticed this. He turned around and looked at Yi Shi and Zai. He asked in confusion, "You two don't seem surprised? Don't you feel anything about this world?" Yi Shi and Zai looked at each other and shrugged. Zai said, "There's nothing to be surprised about. It's not like we haven't seen it before. From the ancient era until today, in the far west of the divine land of the gods, there's a hidden subworld. It's exactly like this place. Everyone who enters it will have their powers sealed. It's just that it's much more magnificent than this place, and only powerful forces know about that place. I was only curious for a moment at most. The moment I found out that this is a similar world to the tertiary realm." Yi Shi also said, "That's it. This place is full of fantasy-style buildings and strange transportation. It's very similar to the ancient ruins I saw in a certain world in the tertiary realm. It's said that it's from the ancient era of that world. When we came in, I told Brother Nua that the information elimination barrier is a product of that world. That type of world, well, it's called a scientific world. As for what science is, for example, we, the people of the God realm, cultivate by strengthening ourselves. We walk the path of personal strength enhancement. As for that, the world of science that Yi Shi mentioned, we walk the path of technology enhancement. Do you know what technology is?" Violet Knight asked calmly. Yun Nuoshing, Chu Yingzhan, and the others looked at each other and shook their heads vigorously. "I've never heard of it. I've never heard of it at all." "That's right. I don't know either." Zai put her hands on her hips and nodded. Everyone fell to the ground with a thud. It took them half a minute to slowly get up. Yun Nuoshing stepped forward and rubbed the girl's head vigorously. She rolled her eyes and said, "You don't know, but you still say it so confidently. In short." Yi Shi struggled to get up. She coughed dryly and said, "That world's development path is completely different from the divine realms. I don't know what science is either. People who are not born and raised in that world probably don't know. For the time being, we'll just treat it as people from a different system." "Which one is stronger in comparison?" Chu Yingzhan asked curiously. "Everyone has their own strength. Everyone has their own strengths. That world is good at group battles, while us from the celestial realm are more suited for individual battles. However, in a group battle, it's hard for 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. Moreover, that world's attacks, weapons, and whatnot are very strange and impossible to guard against. Even emperors of the celestial realm would have a hard time dealing with those things in a large group battle. In any case, that world is more suited for group battles. Even the strongest of the celestial realm would find it difficult to sweep through an entire region alone. However, there are exceptions, such as Brother Nuaw. If Brother Nuaw were to be left there, he would probably be able to sweep through an entire planet. No, destroy it. Then what about two-sided group combat? Chu Yingzhan frowned, as if she didn't want to admit that the powerful people of the divine realm would not be able to dominate other worlds. That's hard to say. The other world would probably have to have 10 times the number of powerful people of the divine realm to be equal. If they have the same combat power. Yishi pulled at her black hair in frustration. She was confused and couldn't explain it clearly. But if we're talking about the top, the most powerful people of that world probably wouldn't be able to match the existence of a deity. Yishi added. Hearing this, Chu Yingzhan patted her chest and sighed in relief. She teased, in the end, the powerful people of the divine realm are still stronger. Chapter 8:11. When the experts of the deity realm appear on the stage of the Eight Elements realm, they descend like kings. Even on other planets with life in the starry sky, when the experts of other worlds hear that you are from the deity realm, even if they are stronger than you, they will still be polite. The realm of the gods stands at the apex of the entire 8 elemental realms. It was created by the ancient first generation of God. It is the most perfect world. Only here can one embark on the final road to godhood. Gods. I'm not sure if there are such powerhouses in other worlds, but the only thing I'm sure of is that the realm of the gods only has gods. This is also the reason why so many powerhouses have come to the realm of the god. No matter how strong one's cultivation is in other worlds, it's difficult to ascend to godhood without stepping into the realm of the gods. As for this era, the deity realm is sealed. I guess many people are worried to death. The people of the deity realm can't sense the existence of the outside world, and similarly, the people of the outside world can't sense the existence of the deity realm. After 19 eras, 19 trillion years, I don't know if the outside world has already forgotten about the deity realm. As soon as Yishi's faint voice fell, a white light suddenly flashed above Yun Nuoxing's head. A soft bluish-white ball of meat appeared out of thin air and pressed down on his head. There was also a tail hanging behind his head, swinging here and there. Forgotten? Not yet, but the deity realm has been regarded as a myth by the people of the outside world. A deep tiger roar came from Little White's throat. After shaking his head for a while, he said lazily, "Even now, there are still people from the deity realm heading to other worlds. However, compared to a few eras ago, the number of people has decreased a lot. Probably less than 1 in 100 million people are exploring the outside world. Because of this, the people of the deity realm have become a rare species. In the vast and boundless starry sky, there are many hidden worlds. The deity realm is just one of them. The people of the deity realm outside will also bring their friends from the outside world to this world. However, there is one thing that no one has thought of. I also realized it not long ago. The deity realm itself has been sealed. Its memory and existence have been gradually erased from the minds of the people of the outside world. The deity realm itself has become a side that cannot be explored. This is also the reason why not many people from the outside world have come to the deity realm even after an era has passed." Little White stretched on Yun Nuoxing's head and said, "You mean to say that the deity realm has been cancelled out by that layer of sealed field?" Feng Er looked at Little White and frowned slightly. Little White nodded and said, "Without the people of the deity realm leading the way, it is absolutely impossible to find the location of the deity realm. After leaving the deity realm, one will quickly forget its existence and even forget why they came to this place. However, one's own judgment will definitely be self-justifying, no matter how powerful the existence is. The restriction left behind by the great deity of the deity realm has erased this entire world from the level of its existence. It exists here, and everyone knows about it. However, they don't know that it exists here. Everyone will only remember that there is a powerful and transcendent continent in the starry sky of the eight elements realm, but they will never know where it is. It's so mysterious and mysterious. What does that great deity want to do? She died long ago and entered the cycle of reincarnation. Could it be that she has woken up in this era? Yun Nuoshing frowned. I don't know, but I have a premonition that we can get some hints from this world. Maybe we can solve some of the mysteries. Little White shook his head and said. Ming had already opened the door under Yun Nuoshing's signal. As soon as the 1-meter-wide metal door was pushed open, a small figure suddenly appeared in midair, giving everyone a fright. Then, it accurately pounced on Yun Nuoshing's face. Brother, you've finally come to pick us up. Seeing the little figure excitedly hugging his neck, and rubbing her little face on his face, almost rubbing off a layer of his skin, Yun Nuoshing showed a warm smile on his face. He hugged the little girl with long purple hair with both hands, raised her high, and said with a smile, Little girl, I've come to pick you up. Little Purple Soul was still the same as before. At this time, she was wearing a snow-white princess dress and still looked like she was 2 or 3 years old. If he had to say something, it seemed that her eyes had become more lively. However, even if there were any substantial changes in this world, he couldn't see it. After the little girl rushed out, she stuck to Yun Nuoshing and bit his ear for a long time. Then, she jumped and greeted Xian and the other girls. She even rubbed against Feng and Bing Er's arms for a long time before climbing up the former's trousers and sitting on his shoulder. She hugged Yun Nuoshing's head with one hand and carried Little White, who was lying comfortably on Yun Nuoshing's head, down with the other hand. She exclaimed as if she had seen something fun. Little White, who was sleeping peacefully with his little tail wagging, was suddenly stunned. When he came back to his senses, he saw a little girl hugging him and swaying back and forth. She even kept rubbing her pink little face on his fur. In his shock, he didn't forget to ask Yun Nuoshing, Hey, is this your daughter? Yun Nuoshing covered his face speechlessly and waved his hand. Helpless, she could only find a room to make do. Wow, a harem guy! Ming and Little Purple Soul's room was quite spacious, and there were enough rooms. When they were assigned rooms, Yun Nuoshing, Xian, and Feng who were used to certain special situations, were almost bound to one room. However, when Ming saw the expression on the three's faces, his pretty face instantly turned ashen, as if all hope had been extinguished. Then, he rushed into the three's room and stayed in the room. Chu Yingzhan couldn't help but grumble when she saw that. Then, she lightly closed the door. Only Yun Nuoshing stared at the door with resentment. So, how did they get through the night? Yun Nuoshing only remembered that when he closed the door and stretched, the 3 girls on the bed had already fallen asleep, using each other as pillows. Ming's wide wings covered the bed, and his feathers fell to the ground. It seemed like they had just quarreled. Yun Nuoshing looked at this scene tragically. He rubbed his face tragically. The expression on his face was as if he saw his wife, who had a bad sleeping posture, kick him to the ground and occupy the entire bed. She didn't even leave him a blanket. After sighing for a long time, Yun Nuoshing could only resign himself to his fate. He moved a stool over and leaned on the side of the bed for the night. He never thought that the first night he came to this strange world, he would actually sleep on a stool. And he even woke up cold in the middle of the night. Wake up! The harem guys of the 3 ants and 8 ants are all awake. Something happened. Something big happened. Yun Nuoshing was awakened by a lion's roar in the morning. Half of his body jumped up from the shock. When he turned his head, he saw beautiful silver hair falling on his chest, a small head resting on his shoulder, and a huge white wing wrapped around his waist. He then looked at Xian and Feng who were still sleeping soundly on the bed, and immediately understood what happened. Then, he cruelly woke up the 3 girls who were leaning on him and lying on the bed. The 3 girls were confused when they woke up, so Yun Nuoshing left them here for the time being. He ruffled his messy hair, opened the door, and rushed out. However, he stopped when he reached the living room. In the living room, several people were sitting on the sofa. Two of them were the ones he met yesterday. They were Yuanlan and the young man with the crew cut. Their faces were gloomy and even dignified. The latter was crossing his hands and supporting his chin with an expression that said, "I'm thinking." It was not good to disturb him. Yuanlan and the young man with the crew cut sat on both sides of the sofa. In the middle, there was a young man who was trembling with fear. He was about 16 years old, wearing an ordinary white shirt and black trousers. He was dressed neatly, but there was nothing special about him. He wore a pair of glasses, and his whole body kept shrinking back. His whole body was almost sinking into the sofa. His eyes looked around anxiously, not daring to make eye contact with anyone. When he accidentally made eye contact, he quickly lowered his head. At the intersection between the room and the living room stood Chu Yingzhan, who was dressed in men's clothes. The girl had just yelled, and now she was rubbing her throat with heartache. He turned his head and looked at the clock hanging on the wall. It seemed to be 8 o'clock. Yun Nuoxing looked at himself in the mirror next to him. His colorful eyes were dyed with bright red, and he looked a little haggard. "What's wrong?" Yun Nuoxing casually knocked on Chu Yingzhan's head. He rubbed his eyes and asked with a yawn. "Big brother Yun." The crew-cut guy and the other two also saw Yun Nuoxing coming out. They hurriedly went forward and told him everything that had happened. They were a little incoherent and panicked. "That person, he is from this world. No, he is a person who has woken up. His soul is not from our world. I have never seen him before. No one has a soul furnace. He has woken up. Yes, it is said that he has woken up. He was originally the most ordinary person in this world, but he woke up today." Yun Nuoxing listened to him spouting a lot of nonsense. The person who just got up was also a little confused. At this moment, he looked like he was about to faint. He hurriedly stopped the crew-cut man and looked at Yuanlan. "Explain." Yuanlan pushed the crew-cut guy away grumpily, glaring at him as if he was a rookie. Then she said, "This boy claims to be Louis Hai. He has been living in a place half a city away from here without any change in his daily life. But today, he suddenly came to his senses and felt everything was different. Most importantly, he has the memory of the lonely time when he cultivated in the soul furnace. Let's say he's awakened, but he doesn't have his own soul furnace. Every one of us has our own soul furnace. If we don't want to take it with us, we'll just leave it there. Others can't use it or take it away, but he didn't. Louis Hai said he had it at the beginning, but he gradually got used to the life here. Slowly, the soul furnace disappeared. From that day on, he treated living here as a normal thing and never questioned it, until today." Yuanlan frowned as she said, looking at the restless young man who called himself Louis Hai with confusion. "Have you ever had such an experience?" Yun Nuoxing also frowned and looked at Yuanlan. He understood the general situation, but then he had a very bad idea. Yuanlan shook her head. "When I first escaped from the soul furnace, there were only a total of 10 people, and I was the 11th. Later on, more and more of my companions escaped from the soul furnace and woke up, but this kind of situation had never happened before, where the soul furnace disappeared. I thought of myself as a normal person born from this place and continued to live. I've never had such thoughts. That's a very strange feeling." At this time, the boy who called himself Louis Hai stood up and clenched his fists as if to encourage himself. He said slowly, "I've lived in this world for 50 years. A second ago, I was still going out of the house, eating breakfast and going out as usual. I never questioned or thought about anything else. I still remember what happened in the soul furnace, including the day I suddenly lost my soul furnace. I knew it, but I wasn't surprised. It was like it was a matter of course, and I never cared about it, but an hour ago, I felt something was wrong, as if I suddenly woke up. Only then did I remember to look for my lost soul furnace. It's inconceivable." My memories have never changed. I clearly saw my life day after day, and saw my soul furnace vanish into thin air. Even now I don't feel that there's anything wrong with that, or that there's anything wrong. That feeling is like there are two different me, but we share the same memory. Louis High's expression was distorted as he scratched his head. The change of point of view, or in other words, the adjustment of the world view. Yun Nuoxing interrupted him softly and reached out his left and right hands. The same person, who originally only had one worldview and lived his life with this worldview, one day, he continued to live with another worldview. The same life, under different worldviews, would lead to different conclusions and judgments of right and wrong, just like his own mind had been twisted. At this moment, the living room was full of people. Ming and Xian stood beside Yun Nuoxing, while Zai and Little White sat on the sofa casually. Almost? I don't know. Louis High closed his eyes, shaking his head slightly with a blank face. When such a change happened to me, I didn't know what to do. I could only go to the place where everyone used to gather, here. Yun Nuoxing nodded. If you say it's almost the same, then it should be almost the same. I went crazy and gave 90% of my body and mind to another guy. At that time, my senses should be almost the same as your sudden change. When he said this, he did not notice that the atmosphere in the living room had suddenly become heavy. Ming Ming's golden eyes widened as he stared at Yun Nuoxing in disbelief. Then, he hurriedly pulled Ziyen to the side as if they were discussing something. Well, this kind of deep stuff can't be discussed in a short time. I have an idea, do you want to hear it? Yun Nuoxing clapped her hands, smiling mysteriously. Everyone focused on her. Yun Nuoxing smiled, saying slowly, let's assume that Louis High's experience isn't wrong. He used to have a soul furnace, but it disappeared. Then, his brain spasmed and his life went on as usual. I call this deep sleep. We won't discuss what happened in the middle. But now, he wakes up and feels that everything is wrong. Let's call this state awakening, but I'm not sure if he'll change back later. Then in this situation, Yun Nuoxing paused for a moment, the smile on his face disappeared, and he became serious. Are all the people in the city once awake souls? If not, how many people are deep sleep, and how many awakened people are wandering in the city? Chapter 8:12. What's the condition for awakening? What's the reason for deep sleep? Yun Nuoxing sighed and looked at Yuanlan and the crew-cut guy with a headache. We're not familiar with this place, so we're not as efficient as you. Can we ask you for help? Yuanlan paused and slapped the crew-cut guy's mouth. Then she nodded. If it's to leave this place, I'm happy to help. Yun Nuoxing smiled. We'll take care of the big problems. If we want to leave this damn place, we have to understand this only world. I'll leave the small problems to you. Yuanlan nodded and didn't say anything else. She pulled the crew-cut guy and Louis High out of the door. Two mournful cries sounded outside the door. Watching the resolute girl leave, Yun Nuoxing sighed and threw herself on the sofa, rubbing her long hair in distress. Chu Yingzhan sat on one side with her legs crossed. She looked at Yun Nuoxing and joked, "You've just made a promise and now you're having a headache? You need to say something nice so you can force yourself to be more ruthless." Yun Nuoxing sighed and then smiled bitterly. "That's true, but I don't have a clue. What's the reason for this world's existence? I don't think a god would sacrifice himself for cultivation. Creating a new world is much better than this half-broken world, right? Maybe that god is nostalgic?" Chu Yingzhan murmured. Yun Nuoxing, "Okay, let's say he's nostalgic, but why did he do all this? Why did those soul furnaces release some sober souls in the end? Why was he so generous to give everyone a soul furnace to help them cultivate? In this world, what do sober souls like Ming symbolize? What's the reason for their existence?" Yun Nuoxing continued to mutter. Maybe he did it on a whim. Chu Yingzhan rubbed her long hair and said casually. Yun Nuoxing. Yun Nuoxing was speechless. Yun Nuoxing took a deep breath. Her brain almost froze, and 2 blue veins popped out on her forehead. If that's the case, then just sit there and wait for death. Anyway, it's less than a year before the world completely collapses. How can we think about how to live for another year? Or escape back to the other side and face the loneliness there? That's also waiting for death. This resentful gaze made Chu Yingzhan's delicate body tremble. She lowered her head and muttered, "I won't say any more." You continue, gods always act with a strong sense of purpose. Most individuals have become indifferent over the long passage of time. Perhaps 1 or 2 have good intentions, but I don't think a guy who can extract trillions of souls has any good intentions. Violet Knight looked up and glanced at Chu Yingzhan. This glance made the latter immediately shut up. She quickly covered her mouth to show that she would not say anything. In the eyes of a god, a broken small world is not much better than a new one. It's just a matter of cultivation needs. The latter is more malleable than the former. There must be a reason why he didn't destroy it. Perhaps it's nostalgia. We'll keep that to ourselves. But just as I said, a person who can extract so many souls should be extremely indifferent. Nostalgia or whatever, I don't think it's very likely. Of course, except for your family's Xianin. Suddenly, Violet Knight looked at Yun Nuoxing and teased her. They've lived for a very, very long time. It's good that they're indifferent, but when they see something they care about, they won't find it a problem even if they give up the entire world. We might as well think in this direction. In other words, there's something in this world that's worth that god. We can't rule out this possibility. Ignoring Violet Knight's teasing, Yun Nuoxing rolled her eyes. Then, she frowned. Let's not talk about that for now. The main problem is, how do we destroy this world? My idea is, if this world no longer exists, the large number of souls that carry the existence of this world will dissipate. Trillions of souls will return to their homes and find their mothers. Let's not talk about whether this idea is right or wrong. Anyway, we don't have any other ideas. We can only pray that there's no problem with this blind guess. So, the problem is, how do we destroy this world? It doesn't have a physical body from the outside. It's just a cloud of fog. When we get inside, our strength isn't enough. If we're weak, we won't be able to do it. Asking them to look for the awakened is to save more people. These are all trivial matters. Yun Nuoxing smiled bitterly. She seemed to be thinking too far ahead. She did not even have a solution to the problem at hand. One step at a time. Don't think too much. Violet Knight raised her hand and patted Yun Nuoxing's head. Find the reason why this world exists. There's naturally a way to destroy it. It's useless to sit here and think about it. Let's go out and take a look. Take a look? Where should I take a look? What should I take a look at? Yun Nuoxing wanted to retort. But when he saw how excited Violet Knight was, he could not bring himself to say it. Moreover, Little Purple Soul was hugging his head and cheering happily. He was completely at a loss for words. How should I put it? After waking up, I don't feel that curious about this world anymore. Instead, I feel that it's natural. It's as if I can recognize all the unfamiliar things in this world. What kind of special influence is this? On the main street, a group of people walked out in a grandiose manner. On Yun Nuoxing's shoulder was a little girl who was excited for some unknown reason. While sizing up the road he had walked yesterday, an indescribable feeling in his heart caused his expression to become strange. It's probably the interference of this world. When you wake up, you feel like you've been enlightened. It makes you think that you've lived in this world for a certain amount of time and have a sufficient understanding of it. In fact, the latter part is not a problem. At least you don't feel unfamiliar with this world now, right? It's as if you've been living here all this time. It's just that you've been away for a period of time. Now that you're back, it feels a little unnatural. Violet Knight smiled and shook her finger. Yun Nuoxing scratched his head in distress. After scratching his head twice, Little Purple Soul giggled and reached out her 2 little hands to grab his long hair. She kept swinging her little legs on his shoulders. To her, seeing the person closest to her was the happiest thing in the world. In fact, this feeling lasted for a long time. Listening to the little girl's laughter that sounded like a lark, Yun Nuoshing sighed helplessly. It seemed like he could not concentrate on other things. However, he had to add that no matter how gloomy he looked, he was the only one who was gloomy. The group of girls were having a great time watching him torment the little girl. Even though Ming Ming, who was familiar with the area, led the way and took a route with few people, this journey still made Yun Nuoshing anxious. He had to hold back his anger and admit that this group of people, and they were all girls with all kinds of beauty and temperament. There was a lowly girl, an older sister, and a weak girl carrying a little girl on her shoulder. Her hair was dyed in 7 colors, and in this place where the streets were filled with black hair, this group of people walking on the streets, it would be a problem if they did not attract attention, especially when Ming Ming said, "Brother, like this, there will definitely be many people looking at you with admiration as if they are appreciating performance art and secretly happy in their hearts." Yun Nuoshing covered his face in sorrow and admitted it in sorrow. This group of people would attract attention no matter where they were placed in the world, for various reasons. "Brother, you have to get used to it. This world is much more peaceful than the world of the celestial realm, where fights happen all the time. In a peaceful situation, it's easy to breed people who have nothing to do. Compared to our world, I call this the peaceful world. The entertainment here is much better than the celestial realm," Ming said with a smile as she held Yun Nuoshing's hand. "The celestial realm doesn't have much time for these things. If they have time to play, they might as well cultivate, right? Although I don't think so, this is the main theme of the celestial realm. It's chaos and the law of the jungle. No wonder that crew-cut guy said that living here for too long would make people hot-blooded." Yun Nuoshing spoke with assurance. It was no wonder that he sighed. The place where they lived and the place where they were now were two extremes in terms of order. The peace here was too comfortable, and there were rarely any life-threatening dangers. Life here was relaxed and there was no sense of tension. It was unlike the celestial realm, where one could accidentally get into trouble when they went out on the street. A fight would break out without a word, and the scale of the fight would be a little bigger. Various sects and clans would gather to watch, and the flames of war would continue to expand. "All right, big brother, don't frown. It's rare for you to come here. Just treat it as a different experience." Ming shook Yun Nuoshing's arm. Yun Nuoshing forced a smile and reached out to ruffle her silver hair. Although he wanted to appear relaxed, but there was another but. If they didn't solve this problem, his heart wouldn't be at ease. How could he appear relaxed? "All right, we've reached our stop." Finally, Yun Nuoshing and the others came to a stop under Ming's lead. It was only now that they realized that the surrounding buildings had disappeared and were replaced by a dense forest. Looking into the distance, they could even see a lake in the gaps between the trees. According to Ming, it was a man-made lake, and they were now in an open space halfway up a mountain, although no one noticed when they went up the mountain. Well, this is the largest man-made ecological park in the city. It's half man-made and half natural. If you look down from the top of the mountain, you can see the entire city, Ming introduced with a smile. Hearing that they had arrived at their destination, Little Purple Soul cheered and jumped down from Yun Nuoshing's shoulder. She ran wildly on the grass, rolling here and there, getting grass all over her body. Yun Nuoshing, who claimed to be a creature of the dark, sat down on the grass, which was rare for him. He faced the sun and basked in his fair, girlish face, even though the grass was a little prickly. As soon as he sat down, Yi-Shi stumbled over to him and lay on his back. She panted for a while and said, "This little body is so heavy. How come I didn't know that a person's stamina would be so weak after losing their strength?" Zai squatted down beside her and pretended to pinch Yi-Shi's little hand that was hidden in her wide sleeves. He nodded seriously, then said earnestly, "Benefactor, you're weak, especially your kidneys. Seeing that you're not even one. 25 meters tall right now is the best proof. Yun Nuoshing was stunned when he saw how Zai looked like an old doctor at the entrance of a remote mountain village. Yishi was so angry that she went berserk. She pounced on Zai and wanted to fight him to the death. I've been this tall for hundreds of thousands of years. Do you have a problem with that? Do you have a problem with that? Did 25 meters offend you? Did I eat your food? Yun Nuoshing watched as the two girls chased each other around the grass like crazy. Zai ran with his long legs while Yishi ran with her short legs, but she couldn't catch up no matter what. After a while, she was out of breath. Yun Nuoshing was once again stunned. This was the first time he realized that Yishi cared a lot about her height. Yun Nuoshing didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he carried Yishi, who was so tired that she was lying on the grass motionlessly. He plucked the grass in her hair and flicked the girl's forehead with his finger. He said, 20 meters isn't bad, Yishi glanced at him with hidden bitterness. She buried her little head in his chest and rubbed it against him in a muffled manner. Zai originally wanted to tease Yishi, who was resting, but Yun Nuoshing's words pierced her heart. You're already a few trillion years old, yet you're still as crazy as a little girl. After that, Xian and the other girls all watched as Zai chased after Yun Nuoshing in the second half of the game. They exclaimed as they watched the show, as if they were trying to make it seem as if they were shocked to the core. Chu Yingzhan was even calmly fanning the flames from the side, making the two girls want to stop the fight and join forces to beat her up several times. Is it okay to cause such a big commotion here? It's not private property, right? Xian pretended to be worried and asked. It's fine, it's fine. It's a work day. Who would have the leisure to come here? Ming waved his hand nonchalantly. Although he didn't understand what a work day meant, he understood the latter part of the sentence. Xian nodded and ignored him. She pointed at a place 10 meters away and said, There's a sign over there. It seems like you'll be fined for destroying the grass. Ming's delicate body stiffened. He stiffly turned his gaze and looked at the place where Xian was pointing. Then, he stiffly looked at the flames and snow that Yun Nuoshing and Zai had created. The grass had already been turned into a mess. She stared blankly for a long time. When her brain recovered from the shutdown, she immediately screamed in panic and flew out, Big brother! This isn't a martial arts conference. Stop. That's my salary for this month. The entire scene became even more joyous. Flames, snow, and feathers appeared out of nowhere and became a mess. Xian and Feng watched from the side and smiled without saying anything. All right, this joyous scene continued for a long time. When the sun was about to set, little Bing Er, who was on guard, saw people coming from afar and hurriedly shouted, The wind is strong, let's go. The group of people scattered like birds and beasts. They didn't even have time to clean up the grass roots on their bodies. They rolled and crawled down the mountain, leaving behind a mess. The lush grassland had been completely destroyed. It doesn't seem good to leave like this, does it? Yun Nuoshing plucked the grass off her body and looked back at the flames that were gradually extinguishing. She even saw a couple of people standing on the side of the grass in a daze. They had no idea what had happened. It's good that the fire didn't spread to the forest. The grass will recover after a while. Ming pouted and looked at Yun Nuoshing and Zai reproachfully. Facts have proven that even if the power is sealed, if you really want to use it, you can still squeeze a little. A faint purple flame appeared on Zai's palm. He smiled faintly and ignored Ming's glare. Yun Nuoshing smiled and pinched Ming's cheek. The latter mumbled and her ears turned red. She forced herself to be calm and lectured, seriously. If we get caught, we can only eat the northwest wind for the rest of the month. 3 hours later, at the edge of the world, it was still filled with white fog. The rumbling sound of heavy objects rolling could be heard in the air. The white fog seemed to be much closer than yesterday. The ground that was touched by it shattered. So, aren't we out to play today, big brother? Ming looked at Yun Nuoshing, who was deep in thought. She couldn't help but cover her face with her wings. She thought that Yun Nuoxing really wanted to come out to play. Why did they still come to this place? Ah! I can't stop worrying. This matter hasn't been resolved yet, so I'm a little worried. There's not much time left. Yun Nuoxing scratched her head and smiled. Speaking of time, Xian suddenly thought of something. He blinked at Mei Mao and looked at Yun Nuoxing. He said hesitantly, "Little star, we seem to have exceeded the time limit?" Yun Nuoxing covered her face speechlessly. "Don't say it. I thought of it when I got off the ship. That's why I'm so worried." He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he shook his head. He told Kuming about what happened in the secret realm and sighed. He guessed that the 9 deities' shrine was probably in a mess now. Moreover, they had lost contact with each other. He didn't know if Big Sister Jean and the others were worried to death. Ming also didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Who would spend the rest of the time on the journey? Don't say it. My face is turning green now. I was hoping that we could solve it in a day. Now, it seems that we'll be lucky if we can return in a year. Yun Nuoxing covered her face speechlessly. Not long after he finished speaking, Yun Nuoxing was stunned for a moment. An extremely bright spot of light suddenly lit up in the white fog, and it was still gradually enlarging. That energy was huge. At least for the current them, it was quite huge. She pulled Ming and Xian into her arms and jumped to the side. Zai also grabbed Bing Er, who didn't react in time and flashed past. Following everyone's movements, a golden flash tore through the white fog like a thunderbolt. It shot out dozens of meters and then slowly dissipated. Sizzle, the golden thunderbolt left a scorched mark on the ground. The hole was 10 meters wide and the ground sank a few feet. The ground was still flashing with a red light, as if it was about to burn. A scorching aura kept rising, causing the surrounding space to distort. Wow, this energy! Okay, it's weak. But we can't use such a huge amount of energy right now. Zai looked at the ground and exclaimed, "The 36 stratagems." Yun Nuoxing glanced at her and quickly retreated with the 2 girls in her arms. "It's best to run." Little Purple Soul cheered. Although Yun Nuoxing and the others didn't know if the little girl understood their current situation, they didn't think too much about it. They immediately ran for their lives. As for fighting back, that was just a joke. They didn't even have 100% of their strength left. The golden thunderbolt was pitifully weak, but they were only slightly stronger than ordinary people. It was probably the difference between their thumb and index finger. If they didn't run now, when would they? However, just as Yun Nuoxing and the others were running for a few hundred meters, a panicked voice suddenly came from the white fog. Yun Nuoxing was startled. "Don't you understand? Why are you spacing out? Hurry up and run." Zai knocked him on the head and immediately overtook him. While he was in a daze, Ming and Ziyan hurriedly broke free from his embrace and chased after Ziyi with their long and slender legs. Yun Nuoxing, on the other hand, hugged the little Zi-Hun on his shoulder tightly and turned around to take a look before running away. "Hey! Girls in front, wait a minute." This time, Yun Nuoxing and the others understood the voice, and they were all stunned. Of course, this language was not the common language of the God realm, but the language of this peaceful world. They learned it after sleeping. Although they felt strange, it also proved that this world was indeed mysterious. Perhaps it was the effect of the interference, trying to mislead them into thinking that they had lived here for a long time, turning them into members of this world. No matter what, at this time, they did understand it, but the words that were shouted were a little, "Who's going to stop, idiot?" "I'll wait, my ass." "Idiot." The first 2 sentences were shouted by Zai and Yun Nuoxing, but the last sentence came from the white fog. Both of them were startled. Everyone looked at each other and couldn't help but stop. However, they had no choice but to stop, because 10 meters in front of them, a figure suddenly appeared. It was a petite and dainty young girl wearing a goose-yellow shirt. Her fine black hair hung down from her shoulders, reaching her hips. Her appearance was dignified, and her charming face was thin and delicate. Her eyes faintly glowed with a golden light, but they were black. Moreover, there was a slight uneasiness in her bright eyes. Looking at her fighting posture and the path she was in, it was very clear that she was a tiger that had appeared halfway, although this tiger was a bit thin. When Yun Nuoshing and the others stopped, 3 or 4 people rushed out from the white fog behind them. One of them was bent over, and no matter how one looked at it, it looked like he was kicked in the stomach and was sent flying. Moreover, when he was about to land on the ground, one of the people who rushed out took a few steps forward and stretched out her leg, causing the person who was sent flying to crash into her slender leg. Then, the person fell to the ground with a loud bang. At the same time, a delicate jade foot domineeringly stepped on the person's chest. This gorgeous and strange entrance made Yun Nuoshing's cheeks twitch. She silently looked at the person who was lying on the ground and seeing stars. It was a handsome man wearing a light green windbreaker. Just from his appearance, he looked very heroic and tall. He had a head of short black hair and was about 20 years old. If one ignored the drops of light golden blood dripping from his nostrils, that would be the first impression. The person who had just stepped on the handsome black-haired man's chest was a valiant girl wearing a long black dress. She looked like a valiant girl in a dinner party dress. Her long golden hair was thick and flowed down like a waterfall, reaching her calves and slightly curled. The dark golden Mei Mao stared at Yun Nuoshing and the others in astonishment and curiosity. These people who suddenly appeared were more or less looking at Yun Nuoshing and the others with curiosity. The latter and the others were standing back to back, as if they were surrounded. At the same time, they were also curiously observing the former and the others. Good people don't come, but those who come don't come with good intentions. Chu Yingzhan shook her head and joked. Yun Nuoshing's face darkened. She gave her a knock on the head and said, "Can you be quiet?" Chapter 8:13. The atmosphere was a little heavy. Yun Nuoshing and the others looked around them seriously. In front of them was the weak-looking girl in a yellow shirt, behind them was the mature woman with long blonde hair, and at her feet was a handsome black-haired man who had been seriously injured by his own people. They were blocked from the front and back. It seemed like there were only 3 or 2.5 people, but there were 8 of them. Including the little girl and the little white tiger, there were 8.5 people. However, their group strength was almost 0, and the people in front of them had just burned a large area of the floor. At least, Yun Nuoshing and the others couldn't do such an attack at the moment. "Girl, what will happen if we die here?" Yun Nuoshing whispered into Ming's ear. I haven't tried it before. I don't know." Ming looked nervous and shook his head. Purple Night and Mei Mao quickly circled around them and narrowed their eyes. "Little star, can you explode?" "Sorry, I can't. The rules of this world are too suppressive." Yun Nuoshing laughed bitterly. Then, she seemed to realize something and her expression became even more strange. "That's not right. We are all suppressed. Why aren't their powers sealed when they are so weak? Could it be because they are too weak?" The last sentence made everyone laugh bitterly. Maybe it was because they were too weak that they weren't suppressed. Instead, they could pose a threat to them. It seemed like these few jackals were watching a group of sick cat. There were many strange situations, but everyone was only concerned about one thing. Why would these 3 people who were only at the quasi-mortal stage or even slightly weaker appear here? Moreover, their powers weren't suppressed. The probability of escaping is 0. Then, can we only pray that the other party will be easier to talk to? Xian narrowed his eyes at Mei Mao and laughed lightly. Just as Yun Nuoshing was about to speak, he saw a figure rushing over from the corner of his eyes. The blonde Yu Jie had obviously noticed it as well. She calmly moved her jade-like feet away and took a step to the side. Wait. I have something to say." That black-haired man quivered and rolled up from the ground. Just as he opened his mouth to say something in a panic, a huge silver hammer came with a sharp whistling sound. The hammer smashed the black-haired man and sent him flying. Moreover, before he flew out, the golden-haired woman took a few steps forward and maintained her punching posture with her right hand. That poor black-haired man was directly hit in the face and fell to the ground again with the second hit. After completing this two-part combo, the mature woman with blonde hair gave a thumbs up and grinned. Good coordination. After watching this magnificent two-part combo, Yun Nuoxing and the others looked at the figure. It was a skinny girl wearing a khaki high-collared windbreaker. Her long black hair was tied into two ponytails and fell quietly. Her face was expressionless and her eyes were empty. She was holding a huge silver hammer that was bigger than her. The head of the hammer was 2 meters wide. From its appearance, it gave people a terrifying sense of oppression. Yun Nuoxing guessed that the man was not dead because of luck. Before Yun Nuoxing and the others could figure out what was going on, the girl with the giant hammer rushed over and kicked the man's waist very naturally. She bowed to the former and the others and said in a sincere tone, "I'm very sorry. Our family super idiot has caused you trouble. If there's a need, we can provide whips, candles, a small stool, cumin, pepper, and white sugar. That's right, can we have a share later?" Yun Nuoxing saw the man twitch twice and lie back down with a gloomy face before he could get up. She couldn't help but observe a moment of silence for him. Who's an idiot? Who's an idiot? What's wrong with liking a girl? Just when Yun Nuoxing thought that he wouldn't be able to get up due to the 2 heavy injuries, the man shook off the golden-haired woman's jade-like legs with a bang. He bounced up with a mighty momentum and smashed his fist on his chest. "I am the great general of the War of Origin, the guardian wing of the War God Court's 7 god wings, Lord Ferg Guardian Wing. One day, I will also become a god and let my name resound throughout the endless void." Yun Nuoxing stared at him in a daze. She looked at Xian and the others in a daze. They all looked at him in a daze. They felt that this introduction was too long, and they didn't know where to start. They felt that there were too many problems that should be pointed out. After the man who called himself Ferg Guardian Wing finished his introduction, he was answered by 2 white feet. She kicked him to the ground and stomped on him. The girl with the huge hammer calmly said to Yun Nuoxing and the others with a faint smile, "Please don't mind the words of this idiot. He has been saying this for tens of millions of years, and it still hasn't come true. Oh right, we are from the Protoss. I am Harling Silverhammer. As you can see, I am from the Hammer clan. May I know where these beautiful young ladies with huge energy values come from?" Protoss? Hearing this name, Yun Nuoxing was also stunned. She opened her eyes wide and looked at Zai and the others. She muttered, "Protoss? Which Protoss? The one whose whole family has the bloodline of gods? It doesn't look like it. They are too weak, and I don't feel the power of the bloodline of gods. Although it could be that we are suppressed too much, if they really are from the Protoss, they wouldn't say that we are strong." Zai frowned and shook her head. She felt that things weren't as simple as she thought. While the few of them were muttering softly, the weak long-haired young lady's small face finally fell. She hopped back to Ha Ling's side and carefully looked at Yun Nuoxing and the rest as she softly said, scared me to death. At the moment of confrontation, I thought I was going to die here." When Yun Nuoxing heard that, she glanced at her and said strangely, "Did we scare you?" The weak young girl quickly shrank her head and then jumped out. Her 2 hands were nervously clasped together. She nervously said, I am from the non-elemental god race. My powers are a bit mixed." "I am one. Just call me one." Harling shook her head helplessly and slapped one down. She said, "We are here to solve the problem of the large-scale world mapping. Are you guys from the same mysterious group that is so powerful that it is exploding?" Yun Nuoxing and the others were confused. The situation in front of them now made them scratch their heads. Protoss? So weak. Such a strange Protoss. Well, they weren't normal themselves, but the energy reaction was a bit too weak. For the time being, they introduced themselves and explained that their powers were sealed in this place. As for their identities, they also tacitly agreed that they were in the same group. After all, the situation was strange and they didn't know how to explain where they came from. Sealed powers? This is new information. We have dealt with so many worlds, but we have never encountered such a situation. After a series of strange introductions, the blonde lady who called herself Shire Icewing, who was also the most powerful person in the group, smiled kindly at Yun Nuoshing and the others. Then, she analyzed the strange situation. In short, we will report this matter to the higher-ups and see if those old foxes can analyze the situation. How is your situation now? Are you injured? Are there any noteworthy situations? Well, we have been here for 2 or 3 days, and this world is the strangest one we have dealt with. We don't know where to start. I really want to solve this problem as soon as possible and go back to sleep. Sigh, our beds are going to mold soon. After talking for a long time, Yun Nuoshing also understood what had happened. In the world where Shire and the others were in the vast starry sky, many images of the world had appeared in the sky like a mirage. Moreover, these projected worlds were real. Some were even projected into other worlds, and there were even people who fell out of those images. At the same time, there were at least 600,000 similar situations that could be observed. The Divine Court sent everyone out to deal with these world projections, and also to comfort the residents of the affected worlds. We've been busy for thousands of years. The Protoss neighbor is the most powerful human world, and they're also helping. We've been so busy that we've lost our heads. We've eliminated 1 projection, but 2 more might appear. The cycle repeats, and we don't know when it will end. This world is a rather strange case. The projection is a fog, and if we hadn't sensed the world's ripples, we wouldn't have been able to tell that it's a world. It's strange when we came in, too. There's some kind of energy in this place that's imperceptibly interfering with our thoughts. This strange language is self-taught here, and without this language, we wouldn't have been able to call for you. Anyway, we can't handle this strange situation. Perhaps we'll have to ask our neighbors for help. Shire explained the entire situation in detail. Yun Nuoshing and the others only understood half of it, but they were also a little puzzled. According to her, world projection had spread throughout the entire galaxy. Logically speaking, it should be a very serious matter. Why had they not heard of it? Could it be that the realm of the gods was so powerful that no other worlds could project their projections here? Realm of the gods? I've never heard of it. At least in the territory under my jurisdiction, there is no life-bearing planet with that name. Where did you all come from? Some worlds have very thick barriers that cut off all communication with the outside world. Although no one knows about them, they do exist, and they have nurtured such powerful people like you. I think it must be a very beautiful place. It will be nice to visit when you have the time. Speaking of the realm of the gods, Shire also expressed that she had never heard of it. Yun Nuoshing was silent. It seemed that the realm of the gods had been severely isolated from the outside world. However, he did not know what this world was, so he could not help but ask again. 1 world, 1 starry sky. There are countless life-bearing zones in the starry sky. You should be able to understand it this way, right? The space between the worlds is filled with endless void. Shire raised her lily-white hand and smiled faintly. Of course, mortals are more used to calling the narrow world they live in a world. We call it a life-bearing planet, or at most, a solar system or something like that. Yun Nuoshing and the others nodded to show that they understood. In a primordial realm, there was not only 1 starry sky and 1 world. Countless starry skies looked at each other from afar and gathered together to form the entire primordial realm. The space between the worlds was endless void, and if one were to include the time axis, this number would be infinite. The difference between time nodes would form different timelines and different worlds, But there is one timeline that is the origin of all timelines, and all other timelines are divided from it. You can call it the origin axis or the 0-point axis. If the current time of the origin axis is 3 seconds, there would be another timeline parallel to it at a time node of 2 seconds. There, the stars that would appear at the same location in the void would not be the same, and even if the same stars would appear at a time node that is too close, the components within and the planets with life would not be the same. Even if the time difference is 0.1 seconds or a large group of 0.1 seconds, there would be a difference, but, ahem. Zai coughed, and Yun Nuoshing sensibly handed her a bottle of water. The former smiled sweetly and winked at him. After taking a sip, she smiled mysteriously. But this is an important point. It is very important to circle it. If no one crosses the time axis and discovers the worlds that are located at different time nodes, those worlds will not exist. In other words, they do not exist in the first place. Unless someone goes to that time axis node and encounters the worlds there, they will turn from nothingness into existence, and then continue to exist there. Violet Knight emphasized the words discovered, will not exist, and encountered. He was reminding Yi Zichen. Therefore, the world could be said to be infinite. There are infinite worlds, and different time axes are parallel to the origin axis. All of them are, and there is no comparison between different time axes born from different time nodes. Regardless of which time axis you go to, you are still in the current time of that time axis. It does not mean that going to a time axis world 2 seconds ago means going back to 2 seconds ago. There is no such meaning, because that world has just developed to 2 seconds before the origin axis, which is the current state that one can see without time travel. That 2-second time axis world also does not know that it is 2 seconds shorter than the origin axis world, and returning from the former to the latter would also return to the current time. The simplest way to put it is that crabs walking sideways is crossing time axis, and walking back and forth is the movement of time on the current time axis. Of course, this is also a comparison of the difficulty between the two. After all, normal crabs do not walk back and forth. Zai narrowed her eyes and glared at Yun Nuoshing. She said with a faint smile, I'm talking about common sense. If you dare to mention anything special, I will make you into wine and make you drink. Yun Nuoshing shuddered. She shrunk her head and looked at Zai pitifully. She muttered softly, I just want to add one more thing. The chaotic time node is the place where I threw the chrono sand sword last time. The chrono sand sword will also be transported to an unknown time axis and a certain future, because the chaotic time node is the connecting point of parallel time axes. Zai was stunned when she heard that. The light purple Mei Mao looked at him in surprise and then nodded, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. She flicked Zai's forehead and said, This is also a very important point. The probability of chaotic time nodes appearing is not small. Time travel is risky, so you have to be careful. After he finished speaking, Yun Nuoshing and Zai both shut their mouths, leaving time for everyone to react. The two of them were clear about this. After all, there was a certain god, and a certain strange crystal that gave them knowledge. Chu Yingzhan and Xian, as well as Shire and the others, took a long time to sort out this huge amount of information. By the time they reacted, they had already traveled hundreds of miles. Only then did they regain their senses. TSK. Even our race has not studied time so deeply. We know about the existence of time axes, but we do not know anything about them. Shire praised. Mei Mao looked at Yun Nuoshing and the others curiously. She bowed slightly and smiled. Thank you. This is very important knowledge. It will allow us to take a big step forward on the path of studying the truth of the world. Yun Nuoshing scratched her head embarrassedly. Zai, on the other hand, did not think much of it and nodded. This is the knowledge of the world that those important people researched. We do not know much about it, Chapter 8:14. We, the God race, oversee all the worlds in the void. The void is endless. Even if we discover many worlds, there are still many that have yet to be discovered. We are actually a kind of watcher. If we discover any abnormal influence in a world, we will help to eliminate it, correct it, and occasionally create one or two worlds ourselves. Most of the people in those worlds are mortal races. Along the way, Shire introduced the so-called Protoss to Yun Nuashing and the others. This was common knowledge to them. Anyone who had come into contact with the Protoss would agree that they were powerful and controlled the entire void. They did not act high and mighty like the gods and silently maintained world peace. It was only when Yun Nuashing and the others expressed that they did not know anything about the Protoss that Shire was interested in talking about. In her opinion, it was very amusing that they were so powerful, and yet they were completely unaware of the Protoss' existence, so she was very interested in introducing them. There are countless god clans in the Divine Court, and they are not divided into primary and secondary clans. Instead, they are divided into two clans. One is in charge of light, and the other is in charge of darkness. There is also a special example that is different from the two clans but belongs to both clans, Wen's non-elemental god system. For example, that idiot is from the light god system. In our group, except for Ha Ling and Wen, all of us are from the light god system. As Shire spoke, he saw Yun Nuashing's strange gaze and hurriedly waved his hand. The two factions won't fight. It's just that they specialize in different things. There are also light gods who go to the dark gods to train. Everyone let out a long oh. When they first heard about the two god clans, they really thought that they were two god clans who would fight each other from time to time. Hey. We're fine here, and our relationship is very harmonious. But in the mortal world, the believers of the light faction and the dark faction are said to be fighting each other every day. They've been fighting each other for hundreds of millions of years, and they haven't stopped yet. We can't persuade them. In fact, we don't know how to persuade them. We can't tell them that the gods they believe in gather together every day to drink tea, right? Ferg laughed foolishly, and Yun Nuashing was speechless again. The large-scale world mapping incident caused the Divine Court to send out all the available people. It has been thousands of years, but the source of this chaos still hasn't been found. The void oscillation has stopped long ago. The current situation is like a sequela that can't be eradicated. Shire rubbed his forehead and sighed. Our god race has 5 people in a team to deal with this. There's still one more. At the mention of the last one, Shire's beautiful face instantly darkened. She muttered strangely, "That guy got lost in the void." Everyone. Furthermore, the communication barriers in this world are too severe. It takes us half a day just to get out. We have to wander around in that broken area for a long time. I've already forgotten how we got in. Shire shrugged helplessly. My main course is combat. If you want me to lead a team into a group brawl, I'll focus on topics like, how can a small team survive an encirclement of 5,000 people in terms of strength? If you want me to repair the world, she's from the God of War faction. She's a great general in combat and a top student in combat theory. As for the rest, she's just blind. Before Ferg could finish, there was a loud bang. Then, a huge red mark appeared on his face. He fell straight to the ground with 2 streaks of blood on his nose. Yun Nuashing looked up. She didn't know where Shire had taken out a huge pan with Ferg's face on it. Oh, everyone has their own specialties. If the Divine Court wasn't so busy, I wouldn't have come out. Shire calmly waved the pan and shrugged cutely. Are these gods reliable? Yun Nuashing and the others looked at each other speechlessly. They could see the helplessness in each other's eyes. Even though they did not know the strength of this group of strangely weak Protoss in their eyes, since they were Protoss, they had the experience of solving such problems. It was said that they even had a proper priesthood, so they should not be too bad. With this group of people who had descended from the sky, God's help, the problem of this world should be a little easier, although they did not know why this world was mapped to the star field. However, this idea was cut off soon after it was born. At this point, Yun Nuashing and the others felt even more helpless. Although we're Protoss, being powerful has nothing to do with this. Solving the problem of world mapping is a technical job. Our team's speed is the slowest among our colleagues, and this time, we've encountered a situation that we've never encountered before. Ferg scratched his head and said seriously, "Actually, this has something to do with the captain. After all, she put all her talents into combat." Before he could finish his sentence, he saw a slender leg kick him away. The latter instantly turned into a shooting star and disappeared into the horizon. Dumbfounded, Yun Nuashing's cheeks twitched for a moment as she watched Ferg fly away. Then, she heard Shire sigh, her jade-like hand resting on her cheek. "Although that idiot's words are annoying, this is indeed not my field of expertise." Faced with such a strange situation that has never happened before, perhaps those old geezers who soak in the embrace of truth all day long would be a little interested, but as high-ranking combat gods, our strength might not be of much use. The demolition office doesn't care about city construction. They only care about demolishing, Shire added in the end. Yun Nuashing and the others. Ferg, who had returned from afar and was dripping with blood, gracefully stood in front of Yun Nuashing. He flipped his black hair and flashed his 6 shiny teeth. "Anyway, we'll do our best. Of course, we should be able to come in handy if we have to fight. Could this young lady join me in?" Before he could finish, a sledgehammer shining with silver light flashed in front of Yun Nuashing, and she saw Ferg disappear once again. Watching the meteor disappear into the horizon, Yun Nuashing calmly watched for a while. Then, she waved her hand nonchalantly at Shire's apologetic look and said with a smile, "It's a good thing he didn't flirt with the girls behind me. Oh right, I'm a guy." Shire and Harling. When the group returned to the edge of the city, the lights of the city were already on. This strange world had a complete sun and moon system, and the silver moon hanging in the sky was especially huge. It didn't seem to be very far from the ground, and Yun Nuashing whistled softly when she saw how close the behemoth was to the ground. The realm of gods had a dual moon system, but she had never seen such a huge moon before. It's very similar to the cities of my subjects. But most mortals have this style of architecture too. Standing at the edge of the mountain range and looking down at the city, Shire couldn't help but smile. "It's kind of familiar. Is it common where you come from?" Yun Nuashing asked casually. When he first came to this world, he only heard bits and pieces from Yi Shi and the others about a similar world outside of the realm of God. So this style of architecture was common in the realm of gods? As long as it's a human civilization, the low-level ones are all like this, and there are actually quite a lot of them. High-level civilizations in the void are very rare, and there's only one civilization that can stand on the same level as us, and that's our unfortunate neighbor. Shire nodded with a smile that contained a hint of mockery. Their territory is much larger than ours, and the world projection has made a mess of the worlds under their jurisdiction. They're still very busy even now. Speaking of which, the other worlds we've dealt with have all passed through the world barrier. The world barrier of those worlds didn't pose much of an obstacle to us, but the world barrier of this world has been strong for a very long time. It took us 2 years to get in, and that's only after the world barrier kept peeling itself off. The white mist you see is actually where the world barrier is constantly dissipating. Once the world barrier completely disappears, all the elements will collapse, and this world will be finished. Shire and Yun Nuashing slowly walked down the wide street, casually making their way back. "That world barrier has already collapsed?" Yun Nuashing asked casually. According to his calculations, this world barrier had already been collapsing for a very long time. It had begun to collapse almost the moment it stopped growing. Without the support of the trillions of souls, It would have been destroyed in the void a long time ago. Shire fell silent for a moment. She stroked her chin with her jade-like hand and said after a while, "You can say that it's collapsing, but it's more like it's self-destructing. Something is affecting the world barrier from the inside out, causing it to collapse. If it's just a normal world projection problem, we only need to stabilize the space and world barrier of this world. The void tremors have weakened the world barrier, which is why the world projection phenomenon occurs. However, the problem seems to be more serious in this world. It's very difficult to repair a world barrier that's constantly cracking. As for how to do it, I have no clue at all." Shire shook her head in distress. She looked at Yun Nuoshing and smiled expectantly. "Have you discovered anything?" Yun Nuoshing and the others looked at each other. Ziyi pondered for a moment, while Yun Nuoshing shrugged nonchalantly. She looked at Shire and nodded. She told them everything she knew about this world barrier, including the soul furnace. After hearing what he had to say, Shire and the others all looked very serious. They looked at each other, and their eyes were even gloomier than the sky before a storm. Creating a world with trillions of souls instantly made them think of a very bad thing. "This has nothing to do with your race. It's a sin created by us, the God realm." Yun Nuoshing knew what they were thinking and couldn't help but laugh lightly, which made them heave a sigh of relief. However, they still didn't relax too much. In fact, no one would be able to relax in such a serious situation. Moreover, this matter happened to be in their territory and they bumped into it, so it was even more impossible for them to let it go. As soon as they stepped onto the bustling street, Yun Nuoshing's heart skipped a beat. She suddenly thought of something bad. Their group was already strange enough. Now that they had a few Protoss with them, the rate of people turning their heads would increase by at least a few %. Just as he was thinking about this, the group had already walked a long distance on the street. However, they unexpectedly did not receive those familiar gazes, which made him stunned for a moment. This group of people who were completely different from ordinary people was directly ignored by the many passers-by on the road. The endless flow of people separated in front of the group of people, but not many people turned back to look at them. Yun Nuoshing opened her mouth, then silently looked at Shire. The latter chuckled and said, "Changing the existence of our group won't attract attention. If you don't know how to do this, descending to the mortal world as a god will be very troublesome. We will be watched from morning till night." Well, they really didn't know how to do this kind of thing. Yun Nuoshing smiled bitterly. He was a little envious of this ability that was similar to Ming's cognitive impairment ability. It seemed that their group lacked something like this. If I use this ability at its most basic level, I'll be able to erase my own sense of existence, allowing me to coincidentally exist here without anyone noticing. My every action will become natural. If I use it at full power, I'll even be able to erase someone's existence in public without anyone noticing. I'll even be able to erase that person's memories of their existence. Even if that person has a powerful background, they'll still be subconsciously replaced. It'll be as if that person never existed in this world. If I want to, I can even erase the sun, and humanity will enter an era of darkness with no light in history. No one will know what light looks like, Shire said. The Protoss have the ability to edit and correct the void. Every god can do this, but abusing their power will result in imprisonment. Ferg grinned at Yun Nuoshing and the others and said, "Shire did it once before and he was imprisoned." A meteor streaked across the sky, gradually disappearing into the distance. Countless people raised their heads to take a look and cried out in surprise. They continued to walk silently on the streets, as if this was a trivial matter that couldn't attract their attention. See, this is what it means to be natural. No one will notice us. Shire maintained his 1-inch punch, and smiled at Yun Nuoshing and the others. Everyone then nodded. So, should I complain, eating supper in the middle of the night is natural? Yun Nuoshing calmly looked at the table full of food, then calmly turned to look at Ming. The latter was feeling sad that the food that she had been saving for half a month was all eaten in one go. This table was full of dazzling things. "Oh, Yunjun, don't be so calculative. We haven't eaten in 2 years." A friendly chuckle came from the kitchen. Then, Yun Nuoshing saw the god of war of light turn around with a smile and wave the spatula in his hand. Since Ming didn't have enough food, he even took out his own spare unknown food. Shire's hobby is cooking. She's the chef and also the captain of our team. Yunjun, you can look forward to it. She's one of the top chefs in the celestial court. Ferg smiled and gave her a thumbs up. So the captain is incidental? Yun Nuoshing was speechless. Ferg and the others nodded solemnly. Yun Nuoshing put her head on the table and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Were these gods reliable or not? Chapter 8:15. Early in the morning, little Ming received an emergency call from Yu Wenlan and the others. It seemed to be the only good news he had received in the past 2 days. He rushed out of the room as fast as he could. Yun Nuoshing stared blankly at the silver-white figure that disappeared in front of him. He then continued to look at Shire and the others. There was a chessboard in front of him, but it was different from the ones he had played before. Although he also knew how to play chess in this world, the hexagonal chessboard in front of him and the round chess pieces were said to be called Chinese checkers. When Yu Wenlan and the others called for him, Yun Nuoshing and the others were playing chess in the living room. The floor of the living room was covered with a large pile of snacks and various packaging bags. Xian was lying next to Yun Nuoshing on the sofa. Zai and the others couldn't stand the suppression of power, so they ran back to their rooms early in the morning. Only Yun Nuoshing and Ming were left to play with the Protoss with dark circles under their eyes. Yun Nuoshing and the others also told him about the mapping of the world and the various problems of the destruction of the world. These things were not easy to talk about. Instead, they were very serious. However, they couldn't stand the eloquence of the 4 Protoss, so Yun Nuoshing and Ming could only try their best to raise their spirits. Under the high-sounding excuse of the 4 Protoss, needing to exchange information to save the world, they were treated as toilet seats and tree holes. Yun Nuoshing listened to the 4 Protoss pouring out their bitter stories until the moon set and the sun rose from the east. When Yu Wenlan called for him, Ming rushed out as if he was running for his life. His reason was that he was the captain and his teammates were calling for him, leaving Yun Nuoshing alone to face the 4 Protoss who didn't need to rest. You've been playing all night. Take a break. Go out and run a few laps to refresh yourself. Shire stretched lazily. Her exaggerated figure was very attractive under the morning sun, but Yun Nuoshing just nodded in a daze. When she came back to her senses, she had already rushed out of the room after saying that. Yun Nuoshing stared blankly at the golden figure disappearing. He smiled bitterly and rubbed his face. He really didn't know where that guy got so much energy from. After playing for an entire night, he could still rush out. He was afraid that he would suddenly die in the hall. Yunjun, you're not in good spirits. Do you need me to treat you? Ferg chuckled as he placed his hand on Yun Nuoshing's shoulder. A gentle light was emitted from his hand, and his eyes almost turned green. Perverted idiot, although Yunjun is extremely beautiful and impeccable, he is a real boy. Ha Ling looked like she was about to break down. She smashed Ferg out of the window with her hammer, and then smiled apologetically at Yun Nuoshing. When Zai was busy cleaning up the messy hall. After all the chaos, Yun Nuoshing was finally able to drink a glass of water and wash his face. Then, he sent Feng and Ziyan, the 2 little girls who couldn't stay up all night, back to their rooms. After that, he stood on the balcony and stretched his body, which made him feel dizzy, and faced the morning sun. Yun Nuoshing was stunned for a moment. Although the sky was orange and the sunlight was suitable, it was not directly shining on him. This made him feel a little strange. The balcony of Ming's house should be facing the east. He even saw the sun yesterday morning. Did I remember wrongly? Scratching his stomach, Yun Nuoshing yawned listlessly. He looked at the distant sky for a while. After greeting the 4 people of the Protoss who were in high spirits, he planned to go back to his room and sleep. Their powers were sealed, so their spirits were completely the same as ordinary people. If they did not take the opportunity to catch up on sleep after a sleepless night, it would be difficult for them to get through the day. After covering the 2 girls with a quilt, he sat by the bed in a daze for a while. Then, he lay down on the bed. Before he could close his eyes and count down to 3 seconds to fall asleep, the door behind him was suddenly pushed open with a bang. Yun Nuoshing was so shocked that he jumped up and turned his head around with hidden bitterness. "Look, Yunjun, I'm back with breakfast." Outside the door stood Shire, who looked energetic. He was carrying a bag in his hand. There was something heavy in the bag, emitting a strong fragrance. He grinned at Yun Nuoshing. Yun Nuoshing wanted to reply that it was fine, but Shire looked at him in surprise when she saw his haggard appearance. She threw the bag in his hand onto the table in the hall and moved closer to him. "Yunjun, are you not in good spirits? Oh right, your powers have been sealed, so your spirits are no different from ordinary people." After Shire finished speaking, she took a light breath. A golden halo slowly spread from her long hair, filling the air with vitality. Waves of rich golden light surged from her body and gathered on her slender fingers. Then, she stretched out a finger and pointed it at the pearl on Yun Nuoshing's forehead. Her cherry lips were still muttering something, and her slender fingers were moving along with it. Soon, she drew a strange golden rune on Yun Nuoshing's forehead. Yun Nuoshing wasn't in good spirits, so he didn't react in time. By the time he realized what Shire was doing, she had already straightened her body and was smiling at him. Yun Nuoshing looked at himself in the mirror and saw a strange golden drawing on his forehead. It looked like the scribbles of a 3-year-old child. "How rude of you! This is a divine language, it can clear away your fatigue." Shire blushed when she heard Yun Nuoshing's description. She patted Yun Nuoshing's back casually and said reproachfully. 3 heads poked out from the door. Ferg glanced at Yun Nuoshing's forehead and nodded in surprise. "This is the captain's extraordinary performance. Back then, it took her 20 years to learn how to write her name using the divine language." Yun Nuoshing let out a heavy sigh when he saw Ferg fly out of the room again. This guy was going to die because of his own mouth one day. Disaster came from the mouth. Disaster came from the mouth. However, Yun Nuoshing was also very curious when he saw Shire's embarrassed and angry expression. Could it be that she really took 20 years to learn how to write her name? Speaking of which, it seemed that he was a lot more awake and energetic now that he could think so much. "Big brother, something happened." Before Yun Nuoshing could fully comprehend the wonders of the divine language, Ming walked in from outside the room with a serious expression on his face. Yun Nuoshing was a lot more awake when he heard this. He glanced at the 2 girls who were sleeping soundly and waved his hand. "Let's talk outside." In the living room, the 4 members of the Protoss clan were eating heartily at the table with a pile of white lunch boxes in front of them. Yun Nuoshing was sitting on the sofa, staring at Ming and Yuanlan. The latter looked at the 4 of them for a while and nodded. It seemed that the 2 innate powers of the Protoss clan were taking effect. Yuanlan lowered her head and muttered to herself. After Yun Nuoshing drank a cup of tea, she said, "It's a bit complicated. I'll make it short. From yesterday evening to this morning, awakened ones came to our door one after another. The sudden appearance of the number of people was like a chain reaction. The blockhead has already gathered them. He's more familiar with this kind of thing. Until now, the total number of awakened ones was 39. Why are there so many of them? It's as if..." Yun Nuoshing's expression changed slightly. It was as if their arrival had affected this world. It was less than 1 day since Louis Hai was found to be the first one to awaken. However, 39 awakeners had appeared in such an explosive manner. What's more, this didn't happen before their arrival. It was as if their arrival had triggered something. Ming held Yun Nuoxing's arm and shook her head at him, signaling him to calm down. Then, she took out a map from her portable space and looked at it. She stood up and walked to the door, overlooking half of the city. Yun Nuoxing walked to her side and looked along her line of sight. However, he didn't see anything. Yuanlan and the blockhead said that there's something unusual in the art gallery. I want to go and take a look. Ming pointed at a direction from afar while her slender fingers tapped on the glass. However, Yun Nuoxing didn't see anything special there. What's the matter? Is there anything fun? Shire came over and leaned against the window, looking at Yun Nuoxing and the others with a smile. Yun Nuoxing looked at her speechlessly. Suddenly, he thought of their identities and couldn't help but laugh evilly. There's work to be done. Come and help. The art gallery was close to the center of the city. It wasn't very far in a straight line. Since Shire and the other two were here, Yun Nuoxing planned to take them there to take a look. As for Xian, Yi Shi and Little Bai, he left them in the room. Seeing them sleeping soundly, he didn't wake them up. At most, he would be nagged by them when he came back. When they left, Shire activated his clergy ability and brought Yuanlan along. They swaggered out from the gate of the community and saw the young man with a crew cut busy with something. After one night, the quiet community suddenly became crowded. According to Yuanlan, the youngest among the 39 people was Louis Hai. The oldest one had lived in this city for 1,000 years. Yun Nuoxing was shocked when he heard the news. He didn't expect that the body that had lived for 1,000 years was still intact. If the body was damaged, the soul would also collapse. Out of curiosity, Yuanlan even knocked on the buzzcut boy's head, but the latter just turned his head and smiled at her foolishly. Then, without asking anything, he continued to busy himself with the extra, awakened ones. Yun Nuoxing felt that the ability of this clergy was similar to that of an assassin. It wouldn't be a problem to erase a person in front of everyone. He didn't know how great the limit of the ability to edit and correct was. Don't be fooled by her powerful ability. It was forced out in the past. In order to avoid the classes of that boring old man, the captain used this ability to escape every day. When Yun Nuoxing saw Ferg fly out and run back again, he sighed and patted Ferg's shoulder. Don't talk so much. Otherwise, you'll die in the hands of your own people in the future. It's okay, it's okay. He's a pure idiot and super idiot. He's used to being beaten up since the ancient times tens of millions of years ago. He has developed the habit of talking nonsense. He feels uncomfortable if he doesn't get beaten up a few times every day. Ha Ling waved his hand indifferently. He looked at Yun Nuoxing and smiled. If Yun Nuoxing's hands are itchy, you can beat him up a few times. He'll be very happy. After saying that, Ferg proudly puffed out his chest and smiled elegantly at Yun Nuoxing. Yun Nuoxing, Ming, and Yuanlan. What are you so proud of? They ran on the streets as if there was no one around. 10 minutes later, they arrived at the location of the art gallery. After stopping, Yun Nuoxing looked up at the sun and narrowed his eyes. After a while, he frowned. Hey, can anyone confirm whether the east is east right now? Yuanlan was stunned. Everyone looked up at the sky. Ming took out a small box from his portable space. There was a long pointer inside. One end was red and the other end was black. The 4 directions of the box were north, south, east, and west. After checking for a while, he looked up at the sky and said in confusion, "There doesn't seem to be any problem here. No, the direction has changed." Shire put her hand on her forehead. She looked at the sun and then looked around. She softly exclaimed, "The so-called sun has risen from the west." Yun Nuoxing tilted his head. The direction of this world has been changed. The original west has become the east, and the original north has become the south. Everything has been given a normal signal, as if it has been changed by default. There won't be any abnormalities in this world. The sun still rises from the east. It's just that there are traces of this change. I only discovered it when I saw the traces of the change. Speaking of which, Yun Nuashing, how did you discover it? Shire looked at Yun Nuashing curiously. Yun Nuashing shrugged and spread his hands. I just wasn't used to seeing the sun appear in front of me this morning, so I ran to the back of my butt. Everyone! How regular must it be to wake up every day to see the sun rise? The art gallery was right in front of them. It was a blue circular building with a radius of 300 meters. The four sides of the building slowly arched more than 10 meters toward the center. Two huge rectangular objects were embedded in the center of the building in four directions, dividing the top of the building into four parts. The walls were evenly covered with glass, reflecting the sunlight from the sky. The art gallery was located in a huge square. It covered an area of 1,000 meters long and wide. There was also a lake at the back of the square. A river flowed from the other side of the city and ran through the square. Just as the group walked to the edge of the square and stepped into it, Ming, who had been looking around, suddenly froze. He quickly looked up and exclaimed, "Brother, look at the sky." "Yes, I see it. It's spectacular. Okay, it's actually quite scary." Yun Nuashing nodded and looked at the horizon. Then, he slowly looked up. Logically speaking, there were many tall buildings in the vicinity and mountains on all sides, so the horizon could not be seen. The reason why he could see it was because the two conditions that prevented the horizon from appearing had disappeared. In front of him, other than the blue art gallery, there was an endless silver-gray flat ground. The space presented a strange blue-purple color. The background was like pieces of irregular transparent crystals hanging in the sky and slowly rotating. Transparent and azure energy torrents swept toward the sky from the distant ground in all directions like tornadoes. The sky above their heads was filled with a dazzling white light. The energy torrents and the space presented a vortex that gradually shrank toward the center. Spots of light appeared in other parts of the sky. They looked like stars. However, in this blue-purple space, it did not look like a place where the sun, moon, and stars existed. In fact, Yun Nuashing and the rest did not see the sun or moon. The spot of light above their heads was very strong and could be used as a light source. This blue-purple space was filled with a strange atmosphere. The space twisted and overlapped. Looking up at the sky, it could send claustrophobic, whirlpool-phobic, and distortion-phobic people directly to the morgue. They stared at the huge spot of light in the sky for a long time. It felt like the sky was approaching them and was about to press down on them. It made them involuntarily want to retreat. The glass ceiling of the blue art gallery reflected the blue-purple background of the sky. Looking at the sky that seemed to be covered by irregular crystals seriously, one could gradually see some familiar things in it. The familiar attic, the familiar architectural style, the divine sky city that they had once stayed in for a period of time, the stone workshop there, and the six-pointed star city on the boundless ocean that was like a huge floating island were all clearly reflected. Those were the sceneries of the realm of the gods. That's our world. Ming stared at the golden Mei Mao in shock. He could not believe it. Yes, that's the realm of the gods. Yun Nuashing smiled slightly. He looked at Shire and the others who were also shocked and said, "That's our world. Isn't it strange?" Shire was stunned. She opened her mouth and laughed. Shaking her head, she said, "It's very strange. I've never seen this type of world before, but it feels very lively. There are so many people. The erosion of the void has already projected the appearance of another world here. Maybe your world is also starting to be affected." Ha Ling looked up and sighed. Hearing this, Yun Nuashing's heart skipped a beat. His expression became a little ugly. "If that's the case, let's hurry up. It'll be bad if we cause panic in that world." Seeing that he was in a hurry to leave, Shire and the others hurriedly followed. The golden-haired woman flipped her long hair and smiled. "It seems like you cherish that world very much." "Cherish?" Yun Nuashing smiled bitterly. It was not that he cherished it, But if the two worlds here started to reflect each other, and they were plastered on each other's faces, according to the nature of the people in the realm of the gods, there would be an overwhelming number of experts waiting for the right opportunity to act, and if they were the ones who caused it, then it would be even more fun. Chapter 8:16. At this moment, in the Nine Shrine of the northern wilderness of China, a beautiful golden figure was pacing back and forth in front of the altar of the golden shrine. The transparent feather dress on her body fluttered with her footstep. Behind her, a few people were sitting on wide chairs, shaking their heads as they watched her pacing back and forth. After waiting for a long time, someone finally couldn't help but stand up, pull her back, and press her down on the chair. He frowned and said, "Aren't you tired? You have been pacing around for 2 days." The Golden Empress was stunned. She knitted her golden eyebrows and was about to retort when the Empress knocked her head with her hand. She rebuked, "Little brother, their spirit tablets haven't dimmed. It's just 2 days later than the agreed time. Isn't this what you want? You don't even need to persuade them. Little brother doesn't need to go." "That's right, he doesn't need to go." The Golden Crown Princess sighed faintly and looked at her bitterly. "But now they are in a more dangerous place and we have lost contact. 2 days. 2 days. Damn it, if that old faker didn't use his soul to guarantee that little star would be fine, I would have rushed over with my eternal weapon." The Golden Crown Princess gritted her teeth and tossed her long golden hair with all her might. Hall Master Jean and Hall Master Shui glanced at her. The former sighed and said, "Believe in Little Star. Since he didn't use the thing you gave him to break through space and come back, he should be fine. We just lost contact for 2 days. Why weren't you so anxious when we couldn't even find him in the beginning?" The Golden Crown Princess choked and didn't say anything. She could only roll her eyes at him. Seeing that she had calmed down, the Empress shook her head helplessly and sat down. Just as she was about to take out a book to calm herself down, the door to the basement was pushed open with a bang. Immediately, a group of people who were bored waiting turned their attention to the door. The person who came in was wearing a fiery red robe and a red cloak that flowed like lava. His fiery red hair swayed gently as he walked quickly. It was Hall Master Hua. "Old Jean, something seems to have happened to the world." The moment Hall Master Hua came in, he said something that no one understood. Hall Master Jean was stunned. "The world? The world of the gods? Where did it happen? The hole? I'm not too sure either. Anyway, something must have happened in the Divine Continent. Fire Cloud Palace has also sent me an urgent message. At the very least, something must have happened in the Great Yuan region." Hall Master Hua glanced at him silently, then turned around and walked outside. He waved his hand and motioned for everyone to follow him. Palace Master Jean scratched his head in confusion and looked at Palace Master Shui. Both of them nodded, got up and walked out. The Golden Princess and the Empress looked at each other, looked at the altar worriedly, and hurriedly followed. By the time the 5 of them arrived outside the Divine Hall, the spatial barrier that enveloped the 9 divine halls had slowly connected with the outside world. Gradually, the scene outside appeared. Then, Hall Master Jean and the others were stunned. Their eyes became stern. What appeared in front of them was a sky covered by irregular transparent crystals. Those irregular grids were twisting and squirming in the sky. Some places were like a turbulent sea with uneven sea levels. There were also a few places that protruded downwards or caved in towards the sky. The bluish-purple light gradually changed in the grids, rendering the sky beautiful but extremely strange. As far as the eye could see, the entire sky was covered by the bluish-purple light. It made one feel slightly oppressed, as though the sky was about to press down. "What's going on?" Palace Master Jean looked at Hall Master Hua in puzzlement and asked. "You're asking me, but who should I ask?" Hall Master Hua rolled his eyes and said, "It happened very suddenly. Since the day before yesterday, there have been strange movements in the sky. It only became like this today. Hall Master Hua looked at some places far away from the divine hall. There were many disciples of the 9 divine halls gathered there. They were currently sparring and cultivating on the training grounds. It seemed as though they did not notice the changes in the sky. In any case, this isn't the work of the demons, nor is it the work of the monsters. The only thing we can be sure of is that this strange sky has temporarily replaced the sky of the entire God realm. We can't find the source, and it's not caused by energy. There's no change in the sky. Hall Master Hua hugged his arms and let out a long breath. Furthermore, we can confirm that this matter is only seen by a small number of people. Experts above the middle stage God-Emperor realm can see it. Those with eyes that are different from ordinary people can see it too. You should know that that brat from the Fire Cloud Palace was born with different pupils. Even though it isn't comparable to Little Star's eyes, it is still a rare heaven's eye. Thus he could see it too, albeit it is very blurry. That means it hasn't caused any chaos? Hall Master Jean raised his eyebrows. If only the middle stage God Emperors and those with different pupils could see it, it would not affect them too much. At most, these 2 types of people would be confused about what was happening. Hall Master Hua nodded. I've just received news from the Qin clan and Xian clan. There isn't any chaos, though there is still some slight panic spreading. After all, nobody knows what is happening. Only those above the middle stage God-Emperor realm can see it. This is quite frightening. Hall Master Jean pondered for a moment. He frowned as he looked at that piece of violet sky. His golden eyes were deep. No one knew what he was thinking about. Try your best to investigate the situation. Pay attention to the situation in the northern desolate and southern plains. If necessary, set up the barrier. Don't let the devil race and demon race take the opportunity to cause trouble. Also, Hall Master Jean paused for a moment. He swept his gaze across the sky before finally fixing it at an unknown location. He sighed. Also, send someone to the Eye of Storm Sea to take a look. Why do I feel that this matter is related to Little Star? The timing is quite coincidental, Hall Master Hua nodded. Empress Jean also sighed and left this place. It was going to be chaotic again. Yun Nuoshing, who was in a strange world, did not expect that the world projection had already happened. At this moment, they were standing in front of the Blue Art Gallery. Looking at this somewhat huge building, Yun Nuoshing suddenly shivered. It was as if he had been lightly electrocuted. His face also turned slightly pale. He felt as if he had been stared at by something. Brother? Seeing Yun Nuoshing strangely crossing his arms, Ming could not help but poke his shoulder. Yun Nuoshing shook his head and laughed dryly. No, I suddenly felt cold all over. Creak. The heavy metal door let out an ear-piercing sound of friction. These 2 doors seemed to have not been opened for many years. Shire and the others used all their strength to slowly push it open. It was unknown how many years the cold air had accumulated together with a cloud of thick dust. The moment the door was opened, it was almost suffocating. Fortunately, everyone turned around in an instant. The 4 people of the god race also put up an energy barrier. Otherwise, just the compressed cold wind and dust alone would be enough to blast everyone out. Has no one come to this art gallery before? Yun Nuoshing looked at Yuanlan and asked curiously. Logically speaking, this place was located in the center of the city. Although it had a strange background and whatnot, it should not have accumulated so much cold wind. This is no longer the original space. The art gallery and the area around the square have been separated as a whole, forming an inner space. Ordinary people cannot enter here. Only a group of people like us will be dragged into this inner space. Mei Mao sized up the art gallery and said, "It seems that this should be the core of this world. Oh, if Yunjun wants to know how long it has been since anyone came here, I can still tell you. No one has ever come here before. The creator of this world probably didn't think that anyone would be able to come here when he first created it. This is the world of mortals. Even Yun Kuan and the rest of you have all of your powers suppressed in this world and are no different from mortals. Shire chuckled. Hearing this, Yun Nuoshing looked at Ming. The latter nodded at him. We have been to the art gallery many times. I still remember some of the artworks and pictures placed there. But never like today, coming to this inner space. Last night, when we were looking for Awakened and passed by the art gallery, we saw that the sky above this area was like daytime. It was already night at that time. When we came back, we did not see the captain, so we had to tell him this morning. Yuanlan laughed dryly. They were the first to notice the changes in the art gallery, but they did not enter this inner space. And we asked passers-by. It seems that other than us, no one else can see that the time in the sky above the art gallery is different from the surrounding area. Okay, I'll interrupt you for a moment. There are no artworks or pictures in this place. While Yun Nuoshing and the others were talking, Shire and the other three had already entered the art gallery. He waved at them and said, "It's empty inside, and it's completely empty. There is nothing but dust." Ming heard this and his pretty face changed slightly. He quickly pulled Yun Nuoshing and Yuanlan into the art gallery. In the spacious art gallery, warm sunlight shone down from above. They could see the dust floating in the air. Just as Shire said, this was an empty space. There was nothing but a layer of wooden flooring on the ground. There was no skylight in the sky, so there was no sunlight coming in. 3 layers of space. There is another layer of space stacked inside. TSK, TSK, TSK. It's like a box within a box. The creator is hiding something. Shire smacked his lips. If I'm not wrong, it should be something like the core of this world. Otherwise, I really can't think of anything that could be hidden by multiple layers of space. If it wasn't for the self-destruction of the world barrier, we probably wouldn't have found this place. This place was exposed on its own? Yun Nuoshing asked in surprise. Shire nodded. As the world barrier continued to self-destruct, the entire world began to be exposed to the void. However, the world created by you people of the celestial realm is quite strong. The world barrier's self-destruction didn't directly destroy this world in the void. However, the self-destruction of the world barrier caused the things that exist in the deeper layers of this world to be slowly peeled off. Well, it's like peeling off layers of a sandwich. Perhaps the things on the surface still exist, or perhaps they have already been destroyed. However, the things in the deeper layers lose the cover of the surface and begin to surface, allowing us to easily enter this layered space. However, when the world barrier is completely destroyed, the chaotic energy in the white mist will cleanse the entire world and disappear, leaving behind a devastated world exposed to the void and fixed there like a specimen, Shire said. Originally, it would take a lot of effort to enter the deeper layers of space, but now that the surface layer has been flattened a lot, it's easier to enter. I estimate that after a while, when the world barrier weakens to a certain extent, you will be able to come here without us leading the way. However, as for the inner layers, Shire muttered softly and frowned slightly. His jade-like hand suddenly swept across the space in front of him, and a brilliant golden energy abruptly streaked across the space in front of him. The golden energy was so brilliant that it looked like an arrow about 10 feet long as it streaked across the space. Huge energy ripples appeared on both sides of the arrowhead, causing the space to tremble. However, even after the golden arrow disappeared, the crack that Shire expected did not appear. The arrow had naturally dissipated after losing its energy. It seems that the final layer of space is very hard. If I'm not mistaken, this should be where the world core is located. Don't worry, Yunjun, let me think. Shire stroked her chin and began to pace around in place. While she was deep in thought, she also had Ha Ling and the other two give it a try. However, Ha Ling, who was known to have the strongest attack power in the team, only managed to cause the space to tremble slightly more violently than Shire's attack. The space of this world is so hard. It's clearly a mortal world, so why is it so hard? Shire couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed when she saw that her hammer strike, which had brought with it a tremendous amount of wind pressure, was unable to create even the slightest crack in the space. Use the holy crystal. If Yunjun and the others use the holy crystal, they'll be even more powerful, maybe. Wen raised her small hand weakly and shrunk her head back as she carefully observed everyone with her bright black eyes. Holy crystal? Yun Nuoxing blinked as he looked at the girl who spoke weakly. He looked at Shire with some confusion. A look of realization flashed across Shire's face, and she excitedly slapped One on the head with a smile. Well done, One, it's rare for you to come up with such an idea. One smiled awkwardly and shrunk her neck so much that it was almost invisible. The holy crystal has the effect of interference. It can extract a person or a god from the world so that they will not be bound by any laws. Yunjun and the others have been suppressed by the laws of this world, and their powers have been sealed. If you use the holy crystal, you should be able to recover your powers in a short period of time. Shire opened her hand, and a diamond-shaped golden crystal appeared in her palm. Holy power transformed into a golden halo that slowly diffused into the air. Yun Nuoxing nodded and then said, Then the question is, will one crystal be enough? Shire paused and awkwardly scratched her chin. After a moment she hesitated and said, I think, maybe, not. When she said this, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She still didn't know where Yun Nuoxing and the others were, but the latter's powerful strength made her hesitate. She really didn't know if one crystal would be enough. Let's try it first. Shire handed the holy crystal to Yun Nuoxing and looked at him carefully. Yun Nuoxing nodded. He didn't have much to say at this time, so he solemnly took the holy crystal. The holy crystal was scorching hot in his hand, as if it was the high temperature of the holy power. It didn't cause him any harm, and the holy power surged into his body like a hot spring, making him feel a sense of emptiness. This feeling of being stimulated by the holy crystal was very strange. It made Yun Nuoxing feel as if he was an illusion, not a physical existence, but also as if he was wandering in the void without anyone to rely on. His soul had broken free from the shackles of his physical body, and he was in a completely free state. In this state, he gradually felt the suppressed power slowly being released. Crack! Before he could carefully feel this wonderful feeling, the sound of a crystal shattering came from his hand, causing everyone to be stunned and quickly lowered their heads. Yun Nuoxing's illusory body gradually became solid, and the golden crystal in his hand dimmed and turned into fragments on the ground after exhausting its energy. Shire opened her mouth in a daze. Her jade-like hands trembled as she picked up the half-dried crystal. The smile on her face was squeezed together with a crying face. Ugh, a piece of holy crystal is so expensive. Yun Nuoxing saw that he had recovered, and the power that he had just recovered quickly disappeared like a receding tide. When he saw Shire's distressed look, he scratched his head and was about to say something to comfort her, but the latter took out a big box with a bang. A bright golden light burst out, almost blinding everyone's eyes. Fortunately, I bought a bunch of them during the holiday discount. Remember to buy more for me when you go back. You guys pay for it. After throwing out a big box of holy crystals, Shire clapped her hands, put her hands on her hips, and snorted at Fag and the others. The latter and the others immediately smiled bitterly and nodded. Yun Nuoxing saw this scene as soon as he opened his mouth, and when he heard this, he immediately closed his mouth and bit the tip of his tongue. His whole body trembled, and he quickly covered his mouth and howled. He felt that he had worried for nothing. He thought that this thing was priceless, but in the end it was a box of them. Chapter 8:17. Yun Nuoxing held a large box of holy crystals in his hand, and the energy in his body once again awakened from the stagnant pool into a monstrous wave. The scorching golden energy rapidly flowed through his limbs and bones, giving Yun Nuoshing a mysterious feeling of being freed from his shackles. Time was short, and there wasn't much time for him to feel it in detail. He could only barely remember this feeling. Then, with a wave of his right hand, the Nethervoid sword and Linghong's sword appeared in front of him and quickly began to merge. Bang! 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 Rows of holy crystals exploded into pieces in unison. Shire's heart was bleeding, and her pretty face was twisted in pain. However, when she saw that Yun Nuoshing was clearly gathering energy, she didn't have time to say anything. She gritted her teeth and took out another box of holy crystals. There were about 200 in one box, and 100 had already exploded while Yun Nuoshing was gathering energy. 110, 120, 150. Fag, who was at the side, had nothing to do. He took out a pair of sunglasses and put them on. He calmly looked at the 2 boxes of holy crystals and counted the number of holy crystals that had exploded into dust. Shire's delicate body trembled violently, and her pretty face grew paler and paler as she listened to him count the number of holy crystals. Yun Nuoshing didn't know how hard the space here was, and he did his best to gather energy to the limit. When the divine sword in his hand had accumulated enough energy, he let out a soft cry, raised the divine sword high, and slashed down fiercely. The sword light that was over 10,000 feet long tore through the entire art gallery, creating a bottomless gully on the ground. The space in front of him started to vibrate rapidly, creating huge ripples like the surface of the water. Finally, with a crisp sound, it could no longer withstand the pressure, and a crack that was suffused with black light appeared out of nowhere. The crack was a vertical opening in the space. It was about 100 meters tall and 10 meters wide. The edges of the crack were surrounded by a frightening black fog, and the inside of the crack was silver white. It was like a portal, and nothing could be seen. Whoa! My sacred crystal! When the space was torn open, Fog and the others all cried out in surprise. Only Shire sat on the ground with a pained expression. Mei Mao looked at the 2 boxes of crystal shards that had already turned into trash. Her pitiful appearance made Yun Nuoshing and the others feel pained. Anyway, I'll be reimbursed. I don't care anymore. When the time comes, I'll just scam a few more boxes to bring home. Before Yun Nuoshing could comfort him, Shire jumped up as if nothing had happened. He casually tossed the 2 boxes back into his space and patted Yun Nuoshing on the shoulder. He smiled at Yun Nuoshing and said, "Not bad, you even managed to open up a hole in such a hard space. As expected of the mysterious and powerful, well, as long as you know what I mean." Yun Nuoshing's face twitched as he nodded fiercely. This guy was so heartless that it was a waste of the words of consolation that he had squeezed out with his low EQ. He even died in his stomach. Shire didn't think too much about the identity of Yun Nuoshing and the others. She didn't think too much about it even when she saw that the power he used was completely different from theirs. To her, there were only 2 things she could tell about Yun Nuoshing and the others. They were very strong, and they came from a mysterious sealed world similar to their peers. The void was so big that there were countless worlds. Adding to that the timeline system that they had just learned about, the number of worlds in this world would increase by many times. Furthermore, it was said that crossing timelines was a very simple matter, so it wasn't strange at all to see which world the mysterious and powerful peers they met here came from. Yun Nuoshing was still curious about the origins of these people. They only had the power of a mortal, and they called themselves gods. However, he didn't think too much about it for now. Everyone hesitated for a moment, but it was still Shire who casually took the lead and stepped into the crack. Yun Nuoshing and the others looked at each other and followed without hesitation. A silver light flashed before their eyes, and then the scene changed instantly. In an instant, the empty art gallery disappeared, and the bluish-purple sky was wiped away. There was no more sunlight pouring down from the sky. What appeared in front of them was a silvery white earth. The ground around it was filled with potholes ranging from 1 meter in radius to the largest that couldn't be seen clearly. In the sky, there was a pitch-black and twinkling starry sky. In the distant star field, bright starlight constantly flashed past. Those were meteors that were rapidly disappearing. Further away, the star field was filled with magnificent colors. Clouds of energy rolled and condensed in the deep space, and in front of them were 4 incomparably huge planets. They were very close to this silvery white Earth, and the 4 planets were facing each other in a cross. They were fixed in space and didn't move at all. They occupied a quarter of their vision, as if they were within reach. This is the starry sky? What is this place? Yun Nuoshing widened his eyes in shock. He had experienced this kind of scene many times, and every time, his jaw would drop. This time was no exception. The 4 huge planets hung in the sky of this silvery white Earth, and half of them were below the horizon. When he looked up, he could see the ground on the 4 planets. They were 4 solid spheres without any atmosphere, and the ground was exposed to the starry sky. He could faintly see the irregular topography on the surface of the planets, and the undulating mountain ranges. On the half of the planet that faced this silvery white Earth, there was an incomparably huge formation that was facing them from afar. Yes, to be honest, I feel a little scared when these 4 formations that look incredibly powerful are facing me. Yun Nuoshing shuddered when he saw the huge formations on the 4 huge planets with a radius of 100,000 miles. Moreover, the patterns were so complicated and gorgeous that they could scare a god to death. Especially when these 4 formations were facing them. Although they were actually facing the ground beneath their feet, they were above it, so it was normal for them to see it as facing them. Behind them was the crack that had yet to close. The black fog was like 2 large hands that firmly held onto the crack, allowing it to open steadily in space. I'm not sure either. If it was any other ordinary world, this should be where the core of the world is located. However, the world created by the people in Lord Yunjuan's world seems to be different from the ones we have seen before. Shire raised his head to look at the 4 huge physical planets and said, "The formations on those 4 planets are also of a type that we have never seen before. They are too complicated. I have never seen such complicated formations before, so I can't tell what they are used for. That's a magic formation used to store and maintain the stability of the world core. It's a very obscure type of magic formation that isn't commonly used. If this kind of magic formation is used to maintain the world core, then the world is already on the verge of death. Using the magic formation to forcefully prolong its life will only prolong its feeble existence." Suddenly, a very gentle voice sounded. It carried the icy aura of 1,000 miles of falling snow. The unique magnetic voice and the common language of the divine realm made Yun Nuoshing slightly stunned. This voice, Sister Shui? As soon as this voice sounded, Yun Nuoshing instantly felt as if he had been injected with chicken blood. The ice-snow divine scepter pendant in front of his chest slowly glowed. Obviously, Ning Qianxue was using this to talk to him. Moreover, from what she said, she should have seen the scene that Yun Nuoshing was seeing right now. "Yes, I'm back. My dear, I went to the stars a while ago for some business. I didn't expect that the barrier of the divine realm would even cut off my connection with my divine scepter. I sensed that you were looking for me, so I hurried back." Ning Qianxue smiled gently. Hearing this, Yun Nuoshing's face turned as red as a tomato. He awkwardly scratched his cheek. Ming, Shire, and the others beside him were also a little confused when they saw him suddenly acting strangely. Shire poked his waist with his elbow and smirked. "Lord Yunjun, what are you thinking about?" "Little star, are you in trouble? Manifest the divine scepter. I'll go over right now." Ning Qianxue decisively interrupted the previous topic and said seriously. A little, okay." Yun Nuoshing was stunned and rolled his eyes at Shire. Then, he hurriedly took the ice-snow divine scepter off his neck and waved it in front of his face. The ice-snow divine scepter lit up with a white light, and with a whoosh, it turned from a pendant that was half a finger long to a 2-meter-long divine scepter. Complicated patterns covered the entire divine scepter. It seemed to have sensed its master's call. Right now, it was shining brightly, and the divine patterns on it lit up one by one. They're calling for reinforcements. Move aside a little. The gods of the divine realm have descended. Yun Nuashing grinned at Shire and the others. Then, he took a deep breath and recalled how Ning Qianxue had taught him how to use the divine scepter. He waved it in his hand twice, and then forcefully planted it into the ground. Dong! With a dull sound, a snow-white circle of light spread across the entire world at a speed faster than the speed of light. The snow-white light slowly spread from the divine scepter to Yun Nuashing's arm, and then to his entire body. The ice-snow divine scepter's existence had broken the stability of this world. Yun Nuashing could feel his own energy gradually becoming active in this resonance. The power of the ice-snow divine scepter that spread throughout his body seemed to have blocked the laws of this world from locking him down. When Yun Nuashing summoned Ning Qianxue, the ground beneath his feet and where the divine scepter was planted were instantly frozen. It was silent and quickly spread in all directions, with Yun Nuashing and the divine scepter as the center. Ming, Shire, and the others were stunned when they saw this. They had just retreated a few meters, but now they hurriedly turned around and ran outside to avoid being affected by the layer of ice. Why does summoning someone cause such a huge commotion? Shire was a little dumbfounded. At this moment, the ground within 100 meters of Yun Nuashing had already turned into a block of ice. She could also sense that the ground had been frozen 100 meters underground. Luckily, there was no air here. Otherwise, a block of ice would have appeared out of nowhere. The space was completely frozen. Even the drifting energy turned into ice shards and fell to the ground. A moment later, a teleportation door flashing with faint white light slowly opened. A moment later, a slender leg stepped out of it. Then, a tall and slender figure in aqua blue appeared. She wore a blue and white robe with wide sleeves. Her icy blue hair flowed down her back, almost reaching the ground. Her youthful face hid a bit of nobility, as if she were a god from ancient times. She was like a goddess who had come down to inspect the world. She had a warm smile on her face, and her aqua-blue Mei-Mao was jumping with joy. She immediately changed from a goddess to a little girl who was about to see her long-lost lover. So scary. Ning Qianxue didn't release any aura. She just stood there naturally, but the aura she exuded made when Qianxue's face pale. She hurriedly retreated. Shire and the others also widened their eyes. She had the same aura. After seeing Ning Qianxue come out, Yun Nuashing pulled the divine scepter from the ground. He turned around just in time to see a pair of excited Mei-Mao magnified in his eyes. In the next second, he felt himself falling into a soft and beautiful embrace. Wow, so explosive! Children shouldn't look! Shire exclaimed. He hurriedly covered Wen Qianxue's eyes. Then, he used his golden eyes to carefully examine Yun Nuashing and Ning Qianxue, who were glued to each other. His heart for gossip was burning. When Ming saw this scene, her silver-white hair fluttered. The pure white wings on her back suddenly rose up. Her feathers stood upright, as if they were about to explode. Her silver teeth chattered fiercely, and her golden eyes were about to burst into flames. Yuanlan was so scared that she hurriedly ran behind Shire and the others. She was afraid that she would be accidentally hurt by this angelic girl who reeked of jealousy. Rub rub, rub rub, come and give me a kiss, strawberry flavored. Ning Qianxue hugged Yun Nuashing and rubbed against him for a while. Then, she pursed her lips and kissed him hard on the lip. Then, she licked her red lips as if she hadn't had enough yet. Yun Nuashing was so embarrassed that his soul almost flew out of his body. When he saw Ning Qianxue again, she had become younger, and her eyes were more lively. It should be said that she had regained her vitality. Seeing how she was tormenting him, she should have regained her vitality. After messing around for a while, Ning Qianxue finally let go of Yun Nuoxing, whose face was so red that it could almost bleed. She smiled and looked at the latter. After a while, she turned her gaze to this strange galaxy. Looking at the 4 huge physical planets, she said, "Those 4 huge arrays are used to stabilize this space and stabilize the collapsing world core. It seems that this world won't be able to hold on for much longer." Ning Qianxue was speaking in the language of the divine realm. Shire and the others couldn't understand, but they strangely understood what she was saying. Shire subconsciously said, "But I don't see the world core here. There's nothing." After saying that, she realized what she was saying. Shire's expression froze. She clearly didn't understand, or did she understand? She didn't seem to understand, but she knew what it meant. Seeing that Shire had instantly fallen into an endless loop of judgment, Yun Nuoxing shook his head speechlessly. He had also experienced this situation before. He clearly didn't understand the language, but he understood it. For a moment, he wondered if there was something wrong with his ears and brain. When she first came in, she only saw Little Star. Now that she heard other voices, Ning Qianxue curiously shifted her attention away from Little Star. Then, she saw a group of people walking slowly behind her. Mei Mao's eyes flashed and fixed on Shire and the others. She gasped in surprise. Yun Nuoxing finally recovered from the state of her brain being burned. She hurriedly suppressed the redness on her face and took a deep breath to calm herself down. Then, she smiled bitterly and reached out to rub Ming's cheeks, who was staring at Ning Qianxue with slight resentment. Then, she hurriedly introduced the people here to Ning Qianxue. The divine race? After listening to Yun Nuoxing's introduction, Ning Qianxue blinked at Mei Mao and stared at Shire and the others for a while. After a moment, she seemed to have thought of something and said to Yun Nuoxing in her soul, "These children are the divine race of the 3 elemental realm." Yun Nuoxing blinked and was so frightened that she lost control. What? Chapter 8:18. This group of children has a very weak aura of crossing realms. Every creature will carry this kind of marking information when they cross realms. The more realms they cross, the more aura they carry. It's just a little marking. If you don't look into it, no one will be able to find it. Ning Qianxue looked at Shire and the others with interest and said, "We once went to the lower realm and touched the 3 elements realm, but we didn't stay there for long. We stayed for a day and then left, but I still remember the aura there. And they said that they were Protoss. Little Star, do you think that the Protoss of the 8 elements realm would be so weak? Almost everyone in the 3 elements realm are mortals. They are mortals who can't even come into contact with the virtual realm. To them, the Protoss of the 3 elements realm is no different from a god. But it's not just strength. The Protoss of the 3 elements realm have the title of World Manager. Compared to the powerful gods of the 8 elements realm, there are many differences." Yun Nuoxing was stunned. She was very shocked. The expression on her pretty face changed rapidly. Ming was watching from the side. He didn't know what he was thinking about to make such an expression. "Tell me the whole story. I'll deduce it." Ning Qianxue pinched Yun Nuoxing's nose and smiled. Yun Nuoxing sighed. She told Ning Qianxue everything that had happened since they arrived at the island outside the eye of the storm. The conversation in their souls was very fast. The whole thing seemed to take a long time, but in fact, it only took 1 or 2 seconds. Ning Qianxue couldn't help but nod after listening. Finally, she smiled and said, "I understand. If I'm not wrong, the reflection of the 3 elements realm's world is actually caused by this collapsed secondary world." Yun Nuoxing was stunned. The world created by the 8 elements realm is very sturdy. All kinds of origin powers are entangled in it, forming a large cluster of origin powers. According to Shire, it came from the outside, so it's certain that it's an external projection. It's the shadow of this subworld. As Ning Qianxue spoke, she picked up a silver-white stone on the ground and broke off a small piece. The big piece is the subworld itself. The small piece is the connection and the entrance. However, the small piece itself has the same specifications as the subworld. It is part of the physical shadow of the subworld. From this point of view, the big and small stones have the same quality. I haven't figured out the last part yet. But what happened is what happened. I'll just tell you what happened. This small fragment of the subworld fell from the 8 elements realm and directly penetrated through the Yuan realm barrier between the 7 elements realm and the 6 elements realm before breaking through the Yuan realm barrier between the 7 elements realm and the 6 elements realm. After a series of steps, it finally fell into the 3 elements realm. That Yuan realm barrier is? Yun Nuoxing couldn't help but interrupt. It's the barrier between the 2 elements realms. It's very sturdy. Tearing the space apart will reveal the void behind it. Shattering the void will reveal an ocean of time and a time barrier. Shattering the time barrier will reveal the last layer of Yuan realm barrier. Breaking the last barrier will allow one to cross the realms, Ning Qianxue explained patiently. After the time barrier? That purple crystal barrier is the Yuan realm barrier? Yun Nuoxing asked again. Ning Qianxue nodded and looked at him in surprise. She smiled and said, "It seems that little star has already seen it." Yun Nuoxing scratched his head in embarrassment. He couldn't tell her that he could shatter the time barrier every time he tried his best. That layer of purple crystal was nothing strange to him. The Yuan realm barrier is very sturdy, but this is also relative. If one were to use pure strength to attack it, it might take a god's full strength attack to shatter it. However, if one were to master the power of the elements realm, even a god emperor could easily shatter it. Ning Qianxue twirled her slender fingers and paused for a moment. She laughed dryly and said, however, the power of the elements realm can only be mastered by later god-level masters. Every living thing has the power of the elements realm on them. It's just that they hide very well, and no one can notice it. This is something that even Little Star can't touch now. Only when the later god-level master's divinity is perfected and he grasps divine authority will he be able to discover it. The power of the elements realm is the power of the elements realm itself. This is also related to the aura of crossing realms that I just told you about. Every time one crosses a layer of Yuan realm barrier, the aura of the 8 Yuan realms on them will begin to merge with the aura of the 7 Yuan realms that they have just come into contact with, forming an obvious signal that looks like an identity tag. Anyone who can cross the elements realm can easily discover this signal and also easily eliminate it. However, the signal isn't just a signal. That world fragment carried the power of 6 Yuan realms and finally landed in one of the 3 Yuan realms. It didn't have a mind of its own and couldn't clean up the chaotic power of the elements realm. The power of the elements realm that remained in its body continued to ferment until finally, the power of the 6 Yuan realms destroyed the balance between each other, triggering an energy shock that swept through the entire starry sky, an energy shock that affected the void and the sea of time. Speaking of this, Ning Qianxue couldn't help but laugh. She stroked her long hair and said, "Speaking of which, it's quite lucky. This world began to collapse when it was born. Until thousands of years ago, perhaps not even 1/10 of the original size of the world was preserved. Its own flaws allowed it to carry less Yuan realm's power, so it didn't cause a catastrophe when the power of the elements realm erupted. If it was a complete small world that had already evolved the basic sun, moon, and stars, if it were to fall into the 3 Yuan realms, the riot of the 6 Yuan realms power that it carried could at least completely wipe out one of the timeline world. If it was on a larger scale, the damage caused would be exponentially higher. The space and time of the lower Yuan realms aren't as solid as the space and time of the upper Yuan realms. This is also the reason why the first god of heaven formed a protective shield between the Yuan realms to suppress the strength of those who crossed from the upper Yuan realms to the lower Yuan realms. In fact, it was to suppress the strength of the people of the 8 Yuan realms. After all, if there are no accidents, only the people of the 8 Yuan realms can cross realms. Ning Qianxue played with a strand of hair and laughed dryly. However, the special things in this world aren't any less special than the sea sand. It's not like I haven't seen the mortals of the 3 Yuan realms who crossed over to the upper realm. Yun Nuoxing shook her head and smiled bitterly. She sorted out her thoughts and pondered for a while before saying, in other words, the entrance fragment that separated from this world fell into the 3 Yuan realms and caused an impact on the space and time there. This caused the world mapping incident, and Shire and the others accidentally found this entrance. It appeared in front of you. Ning Qianxue nodded and said, this is a two-way entrance. If you want to go to the 3 Yuan realms to take a look, just jump into the white fog area and walk 2-step. However, due to the suppression of the first god of heaven, the suppression on stronger cultivators is even stronger. If a demon-level cultivator were to go there, they would probably die from lack of oxygen as soon as they reached the starry sky. Yun Nuoxing was stunned, and his cheeks began to twitch. Ning Qianxue rubbed his colorful hair and said with a smile, that's why I won't let you go there. When you're stronger and want to go to the other primordial realms, Schwerer will take you there. Yun Nuoxing was silent. She smiled and nodded. Ning Qianxue also smiled and nodded. Mei Mao looked at the space and saw that Shire was still struggling with the question she didn't understand. She shook her head in amusement and said in the language of this world, the heart of the world is indeed here. It's just hidden in a deeper layer of space. Ah, I understand. Shire abruptly raised her head, and her dark golden eyes flashed. Then, she burst into a heartless laughter. Her slender body flashed, and she pulled Yun Nuoxing to the side. Hey, what's your relationship with her? Yun Nuoxing. Can I choose not to answer? Hee, I know even if you don't tell me. I understand. Love and whatnot, hee. Hearing this, Shire laughed and patted Yun Nuoxing's back. She had an I understand everything look on her face. The latter's hair stood on end. She felt that Shire had thought of something very rude. Ning Qianxue didn't pay attention to what they were whispering to each other. She looked around for a while and then started to move. She opened her hand and clenched it gently. This clench made Yun Nuoxing, whose back was facing her, tremble violently. Even though his power was sealed, the instincts of his spiritual godly body were still there. That tremble made him feel that all the energy in this space was crawling and wailing. In this place where there was no air, there was a considerable amount of rule power flowing. This allowed them to move normally and speak without air. Yun Nuoxing had also come into contact with rule power before. He could be considered an old acquaintance. However, it wasn't as simple as rule power. In this place where the original source power filled every inch of space, there was an extremely subtle force. It was so subtle that he couldn't sense it. However, he knew that something existed here. It couldn't be seen or touched. And as Ning Qianxue clenched her hand, it quickly gathered. The air formed a huge cyclone, crazily squeezing this space. The arrays on the 4 physical planets in the distance also vibrated rapidly, their light flickering. Ning Qianxue's entire body lit up with blue light. From afar, she looked like a blue fairy. That dreamy beauty made this strange starry sky dim. Her entire body floated off the ground, as if she could become a fairy at any time. After a while, Ning Qianxue took a light breath. Her tightly clenched right hand slowly relaxed. The huge energy cyclone quickly condensed in her hand. Very quickly, it condensed into a palm-sized ball of light purple energy. Oh, the seal of this subworld is quite strong. I can't mobilize the power of the primordial realm outside. There's only a little left here. It's probably only enough to open the last layer of space 2 to 3 times. The blue Mei Mao glanced at the ball of light purple energy in her hand. Ning Qianxue shook her head. Holding this ball of energy, her palm was like a blade as it rapidly slashed in front of her. Yun Nuoxing only saw that slender palm waved casually. Then, in the distant sky, a crack that spanned the entire galaxy suddenly opened. It was unknown how many millions of feet wide it was, but it almost tore the entire galaxy apart. The sky suddenly became so dark that there was almost no light. And in front of them, a huge crack that was thousands of feet long was torn open. The edge of the crack was filled with a layer of light purple energy. This last layer of space was actually opened by the power of the primordial realm. The crack that bloomed in the distant sky had already frightened Yun Nuoxing and the others. They almost hugged each other and trembled as they looked at the blue fairy, shattering the galaxy with her bare hand. This was Yun Nuoxing's most direct first thought. The power of this casual swing was equivalent to an attack that was many times stronger than his full strength. God Emperor, what the F***ck did I just see? Shire hugged Yun Nuoxing's head and trembled all over. The crack in the distant sky was just a side effect. A huge crack that could be seen from here was opened in the deep space of an unknown distance. If one stood closer, they probably wouldn't be able to see how big the crack was. Inner layer space change. Ning Qianxue touched the purple crack with one hand and said softly. The purple crack trembled slightly, and then suddenly expanded into a long strip. Then, Yun Nuoxing saw the space crack come down from the sky as if it had a life of its own. It covered everyone and forced them to change space. The space in front of them was not much different from where they were just now. It still had a silvery white ground and a starry sky. There was no longer the crack that stretched across the galaxy, and the galaxy was still dark and lifeless. There were only a few stars that kept flashing in the distant deep space. The frequency of the stars flashing was very fast. That was a sign that they were about to be extinguished. This part of the galaxy was almost completely destroyed. The 4 physical planets that took up most of the space in front of Yun Nuoxing and the others were gone. A silvery white sphere floated about 10 meters in front of them. It was the size of a washbasin. Streaks of blue energy flowed out from the center of the sphere. They spread out for a few meters and then disappeared quietly. Around the silvery white sphere, several arm-length cracks opened up in the space. Many finger-thick red chains drilled out of the cracks and wrapped around the sphere. It seemed to be a seal, but also seemed to be fixing it in place. Wow. Oh, this is the world core of your world. It's so different from ours. Shire immediately jumped to his feet and ran over to the silvery white bead. He looked left and right at it, his eyes twinkling like the stars in the sky. The world core of our world is a huge energy carrier. It controls the creation and destruction of all energy in this world. If it's pulled out, this world will quickly dry up, Ning Qianxue said. As Ning Qianxue spoke, she looked at Fog and the others, and then at Shire. She said, I remember that the world core of your world is a condensation of information. You use it to manage each world, and you can also use it to make some law changes. You know about this? I thought you didn't know. Shire was surprised. He looked at Ning Qianxue and then looked at Yun Nuoxing with a strange expression. Well, something like that. Every world has a world core. We use the world core to manage the world in our hand. Sometimes we can change the information of the world core itself, but it won't affect the development of the mortals in the world. To us, the world core is a management system, Shire said casually. Then, his expression became serious. If we lose the world core and don't replace it with a new one, that world will collapse because of it. It'll take about 10 years. Ning Qianxue smiled. She said to Yun Nuoxing through their souls, to us, the world core is very important. The world core contains a large amount of original power, including the power of rules and the power of the primordial realm. The cultivation of gods mostly depends on understanding the original power. Creating a world is one way. Directly refining a world core is also possible, and the latter is more efficient. Some unscrupulous gods will do this when they cultivate. They've indirectly erased billions of lives. Yun Nuoshing's face twitched. Once the world core was taken, that world would quickly wither. Using the world core for cultivation. He didn't even dare to think about the consequences. Chapter 8:19. Don't touch the red seal. You'll be drained dry. Ning Qianxue immediately warned Shire before he could touch the silver pearl. Shire was shocked and retreated a few steps as if he had seen the plague. That's the seal that maintains the heart of the world. If you touch it, you'll be forced to unlock it. If you use all your energy to unlock the seal, you won't even be able to fill the gaps between its teeth, Ning Qianxue said angrily as she hit Shire's head with a knife. Hearing that, Shire laughed dryly and rubbed his head. I'm used to messing around with the heart of the world whenever I see one. I forgot that this isn't one of our hearts of the world. Ning Qianxue rolled her eyes and looked at Yun Nuoshing. Little star, where's the key? Key? Yun Nuoshing, who was standing obediently to the side, was stunned. What key? What shape is it? The 3 pieces of broken jade you were talking about, Ning Qianxue said helplessly. Yun Nuoshing made an "oh" sound and quickly took the 3 pieces of broken jade out of her portable space. At the moment, the 3 pieces of broken jade were shining with a bright silver light. The heart of the world was resonating with the 3 pieces of broken jade. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Ning Qianxue took the half-piece of colored broken jade and rubbed it gently for a while. Suddenly, she laughed softly. That child actually gave this to you. Yun Nuoshing suddenly thought of the old man in the map shop. That child. Well, she had lived for more than 3 years. It didn't seem wrong to say that the old man was a child. After all, he was a god, and his lifespan was shockingly long. The next time I saw him, he had opened a map shop in Nirvana City. The only thing he found was this half-colored jade piece. I didn't take it back then. Then I forgot about it. Hundreds of thousands of years have passed. I didn't expect it to fall into Little Star's hands today. Ning Qianxue smiled and turned over the colorful jade in her hand. There is a mark left by him on it. It seems that he could only find this thing back then. The mark he left can let people follow his breath. It seems that he wanted to use others to investigate this thing. Yun Nuoshing immediately broke out in a cold sweat. He really thought that he had picked up a bargain. He did not expect that he was the one who sent himself up to be used as a tool. However, it seemed that he was the one who had impulsively taken it away. He could not blame anyone. Well, if I didn't have this, I probably wouldn't have been able to come in. Then, why didn't the old man rush over when I entered the eye of the storm? At that time, the 3 jade pieces were already gathered. Ning Qianxue smiled and pointed at the pendant on his chest. She said, Maybe he sensed my breath. Let's not talk about this for now. After this is over, I will go and see that child. No matter what, he has helped me a lot. Yun Nuoshing scratched his head and nodded. Well, what are you guys talking about? Just as Ning Qianxue was about to activate the 3 pieces of broken jade, a loud voice hurriedly squeezed in. She turned around and saw a pair of golden eyes looking at them with sparkling eyes. Yun Nuoshing turned his head and found that Ferguson, Ha Ling, and the others were also looking at them curiously. They seemed to have noticed something strange. After thinking for a while, Yun Nuoshing wanted to fool them with a few words. However, a meaningful smirk flashed across Ning Qianxue's pretty face. She poked Yun Nuoshing's face and whispered a few words in her soul. Yun Nuoshing's face immediately turned bitter. He looked at her, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. This Lord God still had a bad taste? Tell them about the Deyuan realm. If there are no accidents, the people of the 3 Yuan realm will definitely not know about it. If they don't understand, just tell them a story. Anyway, it doesn't matter if they know about it or not. I'm just curious how they will react if they know about the Yuan realm. When Yun Nuoshing heard her whisper in her soul, he felt a headache coming on. It was rather troublesome to explain to Shire and the others about the Great Yuan realm, the 3-elemental realm, and the 8-elemental realm. Although they were from the god race of the 3-elemental realm and could fly around in the 3-elemental realm, there was a fundamental difference between the two realms. It was as difficult as explaining to a fish in a fish tank how to live outside the fish tank. Yun Nuoshing struggled for a long time. He organized his words with difficulty and wanted to give up several times. However, when he saw Ning Qianxue's shining eyes, he resisted the pressure and organized his words. After repeating this a few times, he took a deep breath and patted Shire's shoulder with both hands. Yun Jun, isn't this too fast? We've only known each other for 2 days. If you want to confess, you need to know each other for a few more days. Is it love at first sight? Shire's 6 silver teeth shone like pearls. His words directly broke Yun Nuoshing, who had been holding back for a long time. Ha Ling and the others slapped their foreheads. They couldn't help but turn around and look at their captain, who was about to go crazy. Yun Nuoshing struggled to get up from the ground. He patted the dust off his body and coughed twice to clear his throat. Then, he poked Shire's smooth forehead with a finger and poured a bunch of information he wanted to say directly into her mind. The information itself didn't take up a lot of space, but the amount of information was so huge that it seemed boundless. Thus, when Shire received this sudden influx of information and quickly browsed through it, she couldn't help but widen her eyes. Her golden eyes continuously swept over Yun Nuoshing and the others. The curly blonde hair on her back straightened, and her expression became sluggish. Yun Nuoshing spread his hands to show that there was nothing he could do. Just as he was about to ask for help to correct this blonde lady's mental state, Ning Qianxue had already walked up to the silver-white pearl of the world. In her jade-like hand, the 3 pieces of broken jade shone brighter and brighter. Ning Qianxue stretched out her hand and gently pushed the 3 pieces of broken jade out. The 3 pieces of broken jade had been temporarily stuck together by her divine power. They floated lightly toward the heart of the world and then touched together. Ding! A light sound reverberated across the silver-white land. A shock wave like ripple spread out from the heart of the world and quickly spread across the land. Yun Nuoshing stared closely. The silver-white pearl suddenly broke free of the red chains. The red chains broke apart inch by inch, and the heart of the world floated out. Its body was shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, it flashed past and embedded itself in the center of the jade piece, replacing the image of the closed eye. At this moment, it looked as if the eye had opened. When the silver-white pearl was embedded in the center of the jade piece, the merging point of the 3 pieces of broken jade shone with a faint light. Then, a few clanging sounds could be heard, as if some mechanical parts had been reset. This time, they had completely merged into one piece. Ning Qianxue looked at this scene with some surprise. She muttered to herself for a while, then took the merged jade piece and said, "These 2 pieces were originally one. This is the real heart of the world." However, that person no longer had the strength to maintain the complete heart of the world, so he broke it into 4 pieces. He left the core and threw the rest out of the eye of the storm. It was a very dangerous delaying method. If he didn't do it well, when he dismantled the heart of the world, this world would also be destroyed. Fortunately, he succeeded and slowed down the destruction of this world once again. Yun Nuoshing looked at the restored heart of the world with some confusion. The more complete the heart of the world is, the better it can preserve this world, right? Why did dismantling it extend the life of this world? Because the creator of this world no longer had the strength to maintain the complete heart of the world. He left the core behind, which was the most important place, the city. The other areas that had not been developed collapsed and disappeared with the separation of the 3 pieces. He didn't need to provide more energy to maintain those useless places. Small numbers are small, and the Creator is already so weak. At this point, a strange smile appeared on Ning Qianshua's face. Ming, go back and gather all your companions. Ning Qianxue smiled and looked at Ming and Yuanlan. Then, she turned to the blonde woman who was still in a trance. We are going to separate the control of this world. This process will probably cause some minor problems, and we will need to take some necessary precautions. You should be able to control it. After entering this world, which belongs to the 8th elemental realm, you should have been given the ability to modify and interfere. At least, you should be able to prevent this world from collapsing. Shire trembled and finally came back to her senses. She looked at Yun Nuoxing and the others with a complicated expression, then nodded. The passage to outer space was still intact. Yuanlan was so excited that she dragged Ming away and couldn't wait to find their companions. When Ning Qianxue said that they could return to the realm of the gods and wake up from this nightmare that had lasted for more than a decade, the girl who had always been calm was so excited that she almost couldn't speak. Seeing that only the two of them were left in this space, Yun Nuoxing couldn't help but scratch her head. She looked at Ning Qianxue, who was muttering to herself, and asked, "Will it work?" Hearing this, Ning Qianxue smiled and nodded. She flicked her finger on his forehead and said, "It's just separating the control of the world and then taking it over. If it was a god in perfect condition, it would be a bit troublesome, but the Creator of this world is already in a state of exhaustion. It's not appropriate to rashly destroy this world. It's better to take it into our hands. In the process, we can also see who the it that we haven't seen before is. There's not much value in taking care of this world. When we go back, we'll send it over to those old guys and see if they can merge it with the peaceful world in the western region. Both of them are of the same type," Ning Qianxue said. "It has existed since the ancient times. It is a world of mortals. If we go in, we will be completely suppressed and become no different from mortals. Fighting is also prohibited inside. Well, I have treated it as a tourist attraction. I will go there when I have nothing to do." Ning Qianxue smiled and rubbed Yun Nuoxing's face. "That is a peaceful world, that is similar to this place. It is maintained by several gods together. It has existed since the ancient times. It is a world of mortals. If we go in, we will be completely suppressed and become no different from mortals. Thinking about it this way, this world seems to have the same effect as that world. I just don't know which one appeared first. Let those old guys study these things." Ning Qianxue waved her hand. After she finished speaking, Ning Qianxue took a deep breath. She closed her beautiful eyes tightly and made a gesture of preparing her qi. Yun Nuoxing couldn't understand what she was doing. He looked around blankly and then subconsciously moved closer. Then, he felt that something was wrong. He quickly walked 2 steps away and sat on a rock at the side, not too close, not too far. Perhaps it was as he guessed. Ning Qianxue was preparing her breath. A frost-like energy rose from her body and rushed up to the sky. It was like a gaslight column. The icy blue cold air filled the air. The ground under her feet began to freeze, and it spread as her breath spread. Yun Nuoxing opened his eyes wide. The frozen layer quickly rushed to him. He hesitated for a moment and felt that Ning Qianxue should be able to control it well. He pretended to be calm and watched the ice pass in front of him and extend to the ground behind him. He then lowered his head. The ground around him was frozen. Only the 1-meter-high rock under his but was still a rock. It was not frozen. Kacha, a loud shattering sound came from the sky. Yun Nuoxing raised his head abruptly. A huge crack suddenly appeared in the starry sky like a mirror. Ice shards fell from the crack and crashed onto the ground with a boom. It was a huge space fragment that was thousands of feet in size. Yun Nuoxing stared at the space fragment that fell down, dumbfounded. After 2 seconds, he raised his head again. The crack that opened in the starry sky suddenly spread out like a spider web, densely covering the entire sky. Then, the space below also began to bloom. The entire space seemed to have become solid, and then it began to disorderly collapse. Bang! When the large pile of spider webs spread throughout the entire space, only the place where Yun Nuoxing and Ning Qianxue were standing did not have these cracks. Then, a loud explosion spread throughout the entire space. The starry sky and space exploded into pieces and disappeared. This silver-white space also disappeared without a trace in an instant. Yun Nuoxing sat on the ground. He was in so much pain that he grimaced. After the entire space completely shattered, the rock under his butt also disappeared. Ning Qianxue patted her butt and quickly stood up. She had already retracted the aura that could freeze time. She took 2 steps back and stood in front of Yun Nuoxing, vigilant of the surrounding situation. This was a dark space. There was not much light. This space could be considered spacious. It was a cube that was 10 feet in length, width, and height. It was like a box prison. Only the 4 sharp corners of the top had 4 luminous pearls that flickered with dim light, which could not illuminate this space. After looking at this space for a while, Yun Nuoxing suddenly realized that he could use his power. He subconsciously pulled out the Netherworld Ruins sword and opened his evil spirit eye. According to Ning Qianxue, this should be the place where the master who created this world was. He thought that he would directly see a person, but he never thought that he would come to a space like this. It was dark and empty, and it was ancient and lonely, just like the Hall of Souls. Nothing. Yun Nuoxing was stunned. It can't be that this world was born out of thin air, right? Ning Qianxue smiled bitterly and shook her head. Just as she was about to say something, her expression froze. Her eyes were suddenly filled with vigilance. Yun Nuoxing saw this and hurriedly focused. The space in front of them rippled like water. This empty and lonely space suddenly shook slightly. Yun Nuoxing and Ning Qianxue turned their gazes. At the place where the water rippled, a staircase suddenly appeared. The staircase was made of ice, and it emitted a faint chill toward the space. In the middle of the staircase, a figure was sitting. From the outside, it looked like a thin and weak child. His hands and cheeks were on his knees, and his face could not be seen. Yun Nuoxing was shocked. The master of this world was such a child? Ning Qianxue was very calm. Gods could change their body and appearance at will. Even if the person in front of her was a blade of grass, she would not be surprised. I don't understand. When the 2 of them were hesitating whether to go up, a low and tender voice came from the staircase. Yun Nuoxing and Ning Qianxue were shocked. They looked up and happened to meet a pair of eyes. They were crystal clear and beautiful like the sea, but they lacked vitality. Chapter 820. This world is broken. I can't control it. I can't fix it. I can't watch it die. Souls. I need more souls to fill this hole. It's not enough even if I sacrifice myself. Then I'll find more souls. It's fine as long as we're happy. Isn't it good for everyone to live happily together? Didn't they say that it's fine as long as we're happy? There's no war or struggle in this world. There's only peace. Isn't that good? I don't know anything. What did I do wrong? I don't understand. No one told me. She didn't tell me either. The gray-haired young man looked at Yun Nuoxing and Ning Qianxue with his soulless eyes without any expression. His low voice echoed in the space like a curse. Yun Nuoxing was slightly nervous. She had recovered her strength here. Naturally, she could feel the power contained in the gray-haired young man's thin body. His whole body was almost transparent. He was extremely weak. His condition is not right. I'm talking about his mind. It's like he's lost his soul, Ning Qianxue muttered. As a god, she could feel it more clearly. The power contained in the gray-haired young man was not as strong as hers. Moreover, he was maintaining the existence of that world at this time. He was extremely weak. She was even less afraid of anything. The reason why she was vigilant was that Yun Nuoshing was still beside her. It was difficult to stop a crazy god from doing anything. She focused all her attention on Yun Nuoshing. Are you here to kill me? I know what I've done. Those are necessary sacrifices. I can't control that world alone. I don't think I've done anything wrong. The gray-haired young man slowly stood up from the stairs. He was wearing a gray short-sleeved shirt and black shorts. He looked like an ordinary young man in that world. You want to resist? Just based on your exhausted body? Ning Qianxue sneered. She held her staff and stopped it in front of Yun Nuoshing. Ice blue energy slowly rose from her body. The gray-haired young man looked at Yun Nuoshing and Yun Nuoshing blankly, then lowered his head to look at his almost transparent body. He suddenly laughed, then sat back down on the stairs, one hand on his forehead as he laughed. I have no more power. If I use a little more power, that world will collapse. I can't do anything. There is no meaning in being born. I can't protect this world, and I can't help her fulfill her wish. This boring life, it's really disgusting. The change in the last sentence made Yun Nuoshing stumble. Ning Qianxue was also a little speechless. You know what we're here for? Yun Nuoshing took a step forward and said indifferently. The power of the netherworld ruined sword in his hand slowly faded. He felt that he wouldn't be able to use this power now. You? Of course I know you. You broke in from the outside and broke through my layers of barriers. If it weren't for the fact that I don't have any extra power left, you wouldn't have been able to find that door and enter the Hall of Souls. In a way, I was the one who let you in. The gray-haired teenager shook his head in self-mockery. You're here to release those souls. You want to destroy this world. We plan to take over this world. Although this world has collapsed, it's not like there's no way to repair it. You should know this better than me. Yun Nuoshing wrinkled his nose and said softly. The gray-haired teenager fiddled with his messy hair, as if he was very distressed. After a long time, he stared at Yun Nuoshing with his soulless eyes. The latter fearlessly looked back at him. Her colorful eyes made the gray-haired teenager slightly absent-minded. After a long time, he seemed to be defeated and sighed. Do as you wish. I don't have any other choice anyway. It seems that it's not a bad idea to change someone to take over this world. It's just that I won't be able to see this world evolve with my own eyes anymore. Forget it, forget it. The 3 long sighs made the gray-haired teenager look even more haggard. It was as if he had put down a heavy burden, but also as if he had personally torn apart his long-cherished wish. He was only 13 or 14 years old, but one could see that he had aged. He stood up and slowly walked down the stairs. At the same time, his originally transparent body began to disperse a little bit of light, circling around him and disappearing into the air. You plan to merge the last bit of your soul into that world? Why do you have to do this? It's just a world. Everything will be fine if you start all over again. Ning Qianxue frowned. The gray-haired teenager slowly walked to the bottom of the stairs and came in front of Yun Nuoshing and Yun Nuoshing. He raised his head and looked at Ning Qianxue with his soulless eyes. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. You won't understand, but you do. Just like how you care so much about your lover across time and space, I also have a world that I want to protect. This world is my everything. It's my humble and insignificant long-cherished wish. It's my self-pitying and narcissistic vision. I'm looking forward to that unreachable figure. Just because of a casual conversation, I've given up everything. The gray-haired teenager's transparent figure directly passed through Yun Nuoshing. The two of them hurriedly turned their heads. The last bit of light dissipated and became a dazzling light screen. The teenager's sad figure gradually disappeared in the light screen. The bright light engulfed the two of them. The place where he first opened his eyes was the shore. The bright sunlight was dazzling and warm, reflecting his empty eyes. A gentle breeze blew in from afar, washing away the sand on the shore and drenching his body. The teenager lay on the shore. Half of his body was immersed in the sea. Waves washed the sand and gray hair under his body. They hid his soulless eyes, causing only his eyelashes to tremble slightly. His eyes blinked gently, causing the sea to tremble slightly. His small face stared at the sun in boredom. "What are you doing here?" A shadow blocked his line of sight, causing him to involuntarily turn his gaze. This was the first time he saw that figure. She was beautiful, noble, and filled with a strong aura. She was filled with violence, but she was as peaceful as her appearance. She was like a god who had descended to the mortal world. Perhaps she was a god, he thought. At first, he did not intend to pay attention to her. Her beautiful figure, gentle voice, interesting gaze, and calmness that was completely different from the violence in her heart. With just a glance, he realized that this was a character on a different level from him. She was an important person who passed by during her leisure time. She only met him because she was bored and strolling along the shore. He felt that he should leave. Along with the waves that hit his body, he should rush into the sea and disappear. That god would probably feel bored and leave as well. Perhaps it was because he had been alone for too long, or perhaps it was because he had been bored for too long. Coincidentally, Anne's lips slowly opened and spat out a sentence that caused the atmosphere to stiffen. "Lie down and wait for death." She seemed to be very surprised. Hearing this, she was a little shocked, but in the end, she still chuckled. The sunlight shone on her swaying long hair, and the fine spots of light reflected on her body. She was charming and gentle, and for the first time, a bit of light surged into his lifeless eyes. This was the first time they met. 2 sentences of meaningless words. What did they say after that? They talked about some meaningless topics. She seemed to be in the middle of a trip. She stood up and was about to leave. He also calmly followed her. The remaining seawater on his body slid off without leaving a single drop. She surprised him. Deities were indifferent by nature, and gods were even more so. However, she behaved like a child. She was very interested in everything. Gradually, what surprised him even more was her mastery of all knowledge. She claimed to know everything, but also said that she did not know anything. She said that she loved such a dull life, but hated such a world. What he was most familiar with was her way of thinking. She was completely like an ordinary human, which made him feel very close to her. However, he knew that she was a god above the 9 heavens, or even higher. Her words were law, and she was in charge of everything under the heavens. She loved everything, but also hated everything. He felt that they were somewhat similar. This world is very big, and it is constantly changing. If you stop, you will be left behind. During their leisurely travels, she would always say things that he did not understand. It seemed profound, but he felt that it was easy to understand. However, after thinking about it for a while, he could not remember what he was thinking about. I wandered the 4 seas, and the world was my home. I have nothing. I have no friends, no family. I sit on this world. I have a group of friends, a group of people who are my life mates. We control everything. I know everything, and also know nothing. There is nothing in this world that I do not know. I have never understood this world. Look, this world is very beautiful. It is incomparably beautiful. It is cheerful, natural, sunny, and magnificent. If you work hard, you will feel that you can control everything in your hands. You will hold countless riches by your side. You will have your own life. Friends, family, this is the most beautiful thing in this world. Illusion. All of this is extremely fake. All of this is extremely ugly. What is buried in the depths of this earth are sins and sins that cannot be buried. Layers upon layers of skeletons have built sand castles. Beautiful illusions, false illusions. Even dreams are extremely filthy. They are like bubbles, fake and laughable. They will shatter with a touch. He looked at the intense changes in her expression, and felt a little scared. That dark and tyrannical aura covered the gentleness and serenity on her body. She was like a monster that had escaped from its cage. However, the smile on her red lips was so enchanting. Who was she? It was as if she bore the burden of pain, longed for beauty, hated the world, and yearned for hope. Who was she? He could not tell which was her. The serene, beautiful, and noble her, and the tyrannical, hateful, and twisted her were the same person. He did not want to tell this apart. He only felt that she was very close. "Hey you, why are you smiling? You are clearly so sad." That face that was mixed with a smile and tears made him slightly flustered. She was a noble existence. He was so petty that it was difficult for him to look up to her. Just by following beside her, he would be torn apart by his own insignificant heart. However, he could not bear to part with this kind of time. She smiled and did not say anything. She walked along the sharp mountain ridge step by step. She stretched out her arms as if she was walking on a single plank bridge. On the left side of the road, there were flowers and weeds that were full of vitality. It was beautiful and moving. On the right side there was the corrosion of death. Countless skeletons floated up from the ruined ground. She was a god. She was a demon. She was a holy being. She was an evil being. He understood that both of them were her. They were the extremes that tore apart her heart. He had never asked for her name. He did not know who she was, and she did not know who he was. The two of them clumsily interacted like this. They clumsily accompanied each other on this journey. How many years had passed? 1,000 years? Or 10,000 years? I once created a world that was filled with beauty. That world had everything. After 10,000 years, the first creatures were born there. Can you guess what the result was? That expression that was brimming with a mischievous smile was as innocent as a child exchanging toys with a friend. He shook his head. Her words and questions were always frightening. She never took the normal route. That world was filled with war and chaos. Everyone fought for the sake of trivial benefit. In the end, it escalated to the point where the entire country went to war. Her smile became even more brilliant. Her palm swept across the front. I destroyed it. Look, this was another shocking development. He always thought that she was going to tell him a touching and inspirational story, but in the blink of an eye, she fell into the abyss. I created another world. It was barren, chaotic, and without order. It only had a sea and a bit of sunlight. The starry sky was tyrannical, and meteor showers were everywhere. It could tear the world to pieces at any time. Life was born there after 100 million years. What do you think the result was? She smiled again like a little demon. Everyone united to overcome the difficulties and build a beautiful home. He did not even think about it. According to the split of two sides, this should be the correct answer. He thought it should be like this. She smiled and shook her head. That world was still chaotic. Chaos filled every piece of land. The entire race was filled with fighting spirit. They developed and evolved without fear of death. It was still a world that made people sigh. There was not enough beauty, but I could feel the brilliance of the entire race. That world also did not welcome a beautiful ending. They finally rushed out of their own planet, rushed out of the solar system that they relied on for survival. They set their sights on the starry sky, and even the world beyond that. The ancestral planet was destroyed in the tyrannical starry sky. Alright, although it was not very beautiful, it was still a passable world. Life was still beautiful. I destroyed it. This answer was not unexpected. She was always so unpredictable. However, he thought that there should be more to it. That part of the starry sky was about to be destroyed. It was already empty. The natives had already migrated to another part of the starry sky. I sent it on its last journey. You can clearly change the course of the entire world. He did not understand. She smiled but did not say anything. She shook her head elegantly and turned to leave. He followed blankly. deluding myself to create a beautiful world. That should be a mockery to me. I am such an existence. I should not be looking forward to those abnormal beauties. It would be great if peace could continue. Living peacefully and peacefully, without so many burdens and messy thoughts. Just lying on the grass like this, with the warm afternoon sun shining on my face, is quite comfortable. Is it an illusion of comfort? He sat beside her and looked at her sprawled out on the grass. He perhaps. She smiled noncommittally. It was still beautiful and moving. Peace, the lower realm. Perhaps everything is an illusion. Perhaps the beautiful world I think of does not exist. In the end, everything is just a lie to myself. Thinking, this is already enough, and lowering my initial thoughts, forcing myself to compromise, as if I have really achieved what I want. What am I thinking? I don't know either. She used those contradictory words to mock herself again. He could never understand, but he firmly remembered her face. Those eyes that looked forward to a truly beautiful world. He tried hard to remember all these. Just like the baffling meeting at the beginning, her departure was also very sudden. When he woke up the next day, she disappeared without a trace, leaving behind a delayed sentence. She disappeared as if she had never been there. He did not have the thought of looking for her. It was impossible to catch the reflection of the moon in the water. She was an existence that was like the moon in the water, a beautiful illusion. The illusion of beautiful peace. Does it really not exist? He stood up and looked at the grass in a daze. He turned and walked towards the sea. His heart was throbbing. In his long life, he felt that he should do something. Chapter 8:21. The sea and the sky were tumbling. A world within a world. This was not an ordinary small world. It was a hidden subworld that was formed under the endless ocean with the help of the boundless power of heaven and earth. It was formed using the lower realm as a template. It was a strange example that was the most out of tune with this chaotic world. It did not expect any guests, nor did it expect any creatures to visit. It only created a world for him to fantasize about in his own humble abode. What was he thinking? His brain was hot-headed, and he impulsively created this world. He clearly did not have much power to maintain his own existence. Just maintaining his physical body was already very difficult, but he still created this world without thinking. It seemed that it was too late to turn back now. What am I doing? He sighed. It was all for himself, all for that desolate figure. That unintentional sentence made him impulsively create this subworld. It had never received any guests, and all the lives inside were born. It had never told others about the existence of a new world. Even if many people could go to the lower realm, not many people were interested in going to the lower realm. He impulsively went there and brought back a template. He created a world based on this template that was almost the same as the lower realm. It had the same rules as the lower realm. There was no conflict, no war. It was just an ordinary small world. What am I looking forward to like a fool? He chuckled self-deprecatingly and scratched his head of gray hair. He let out a long sigh. He had painstakingly created this world, but it looked ordinary. There was still a boundary, and he didn't have enough power to maintain it. He could only borrow the power of the sea and the sky to slowly make it come into existence. I found you. You can actually… Oh, excuse me. How did you create a world with the rules of the lower realm? He did not know how many years had passed. He just repeated his long life at the bottom of the ocean and repeated the evolution of that world. Until one day that voice that he yearned for day and night sounded in his ears. It made him panic for a moment. He turned around. That figure was just as beautiful, dignified, noble, and untouchable as always. But it was just like that day when she looked at him with a smile. This is the world you created? It feels pretty good. The colors are bright, and the existence is unique. Using the mortal world of the three elements realm as a template tsk, it has created a precedent. In order to create an ordinary world like the three elements realm in the eight elements realm, the rules that have to be distorted are quite frightening. It almost subverts the rules of existence of the eight elements realm. She looked at this world with some amazement. That pair of eyes that captivated him revealed the color of a child's surprise. He was very happy. He originally thought that he would be demoted to be worthless. What are you thinking about? This is the world you created, right? I have no right to judge its existence. If you think it's good, then it's good. If you think it's bad, then it's bad. I'm just looking at it from an outsider's perspective. This world seems pretty good. She smiled faintly. Aren't you going to take me in? Go to your world? He gladly agreed. This was the first time this world had welcomed a guest that was different from the rest. This was a very ordinary world, and it was as if he had brought someone he cherished into his own home. He felt a little uneasy, but when he saw her sizing up these simple streets with interest, he felt a little excited about the structure of this world. It's completely copied the template of the three elements realm. Tsk, you're very impressive. You can see that you put a lot of effort into creating the details. This world is very beautiful. I like it very much. She was only using her own eyes to size up this incomplete world. She had also seen many flaws, but she did not mention a single word. It was as if it was just as she said, this was his world, and she had no right to comment. He was very uneasy but also very happy. After working hard for so many years, it seemed that it was enough to receive a word of praise. She seemed to have something on her mind. After leaving the bustling streets, she was a little worried. He hesitated again and again. He wanted to ask, but he didn't know where to start. He didn't seem to be in a position to care about her matters. This world is about to be destroyed. Oh, I'm talking about the realm of the gods, not your world. She sighed with a very complicated light in her eyes. He didn't understand. She said that she liked that world, but at the same time, she hated that world's existence. She looked at that world as if she was looking at a child, and at the same time, she hated the group of parasites on its back. It was just his guess. He didn't know why she hated it, nor did he know what she hated. He just saw her sadness and felt a little heavy in his heart. Say, why do people fight? What do gods fight to protect? Are these all right? If they're wrong, where do they start from? As usual, the words that came out of nowhere were just her whispers. She did not expect to get a reply from him because he was very clean and did not know anything. Like a newborn child, he did what he wanted to do based on his instincts. If you don't say it's complete, I don't know what's right and what's wrong. This was the first time she was questioning him. He was a little embarrassed. He buried his head between his knees and didn't dare to look at her eyes. Yes, because it's not complete, I can't judge anything. She laughed and patted him on the head. This was the first time she had done such an intimate action, and it ended quickly. She still had a lot on her mind, and the expression on her face was like an impending storm. I'm leaving. After this farewell, you probably won't see me again in this life. Don't show that expression. You're also one of the immortals. Eternal life has to learn to taste loneliness. All right, it's not that I don't want to come, but once I leave, I probably won't be able to come again. Immortal gods will also die. Under certain circumstances, they have no choice but to die. Sometimes they even beg to die. I'm just saying. You want to help me? Don't think about it, the other world isn't suitable for you. You should just stay here and watch your world obediently. This is where you should be. The other side of the world is dirty and filthy. It's an ocean of corpses that can only be crossed by boats forged from corpses. Even those who board the boats have to offer up a set of sinned bones. What, are you scared? That's why I said you're still a child. Ahaha, it's better for you to stay here and watch your world without any worries. You don't need to think about anything, you don't need to know anything. Sink your world to the bottom of the sea and seal it. Why? He was puzzled and confused. He didn't refute her words from start to finish, but in the end, he couldn't help but refute. She glanced at him and flicked her finger on his forehead. Her gaze pierced through the layers of space and saw something that made her sigh. I saw a faraway future. A grand scheme is being set up. There are many participants, and every step will take tens of millions of years. I've set up a forbidden spell that will seal the entire realm of gods at the most crucial moment. When that happens, the inside and outside of the realm of gods will be two completely different concepts. How should I put it? Haha, Roth thinks that I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, but I think that it's an emergency plan. That forbidden spell is protecting a fragile seed that will use the realm of gods as its soil and the entire starry sky as its nutrients to slowly strengthen itself. Until one day it will lead to that silent secret that no one knows about, and the end of the world will change because of it. You're always saying things that I don't understand. He was a little annoyed and sulked like a child. He buried his head in his knees and stopped looking at her. His eyes slightly reddened. That's why I said that you're a child, so clean that it makes one pity you. I don't want you to touch those things. If one day you touch the secret that I've left behind, then wait for me to store it away. When the time comes, I'll have someone open it. What am I saying to you? You don't have to pay attention to it. Just take care of your own world, there's no need for you to worry about anything else. She smiled kindly and stroked his hair as if she was talking to a child. She left without a sound. Just like the last time, she left without a sound. That was a matter of several years later. Before that, the two of them were wandering aimlessly in this world. After she left, she didn't even leave a single trace behind. He was a little depressed as he looked at this world. The starry sky had yet to appear, and there were signs of it collapsing. He was a little panicked as such signs appeared right after she left. This world hadn't even reached its most complete state yet, and it was about to collapse. He panicked and fused his origin with the world in his confusion, stabilizing everything. He blamed himself a little. If he had asked for her advice at that time, he probably wouldn't have been in such a difficult situation. In the end, he still couldn't protect the world that she loved. After an unknown amount of time, he was a little tired. He tried to go to the outside world, only to see an unbelievable scene. The starry sky was shattered, heaven and earth were collapsing, and time and space were in chaos. Piles of corpses were piled up on the ground. Countless golden corpses turned into origin and dissipated between heaven and earth. A hurricane in the void passed through the fragile space, and was transmitted to the ground, as if it wanted to tear the world apart. Nothing could be seen in the starry sky. The stars had been extinguished, and there was boundless darkness. However, he saw that in the distant deep space, a divine temple stood tall in the starry sky. He seemed to have seen her, but her body was blurry. He wasn't sure and wanted to go over to take a look. However, the destructive waves that came from there made him tremble. He saw a figure that was similar to her submerged in a white light. A violent tremor shook the entire starry sky into pieces. He was so scared that he returned to his own world. The tremor lasted for a very long time, but he used all his strength to stabilize his world, even if this caused his body to be close to annihilation several times. After a very long time, his body was on the verge of falling apart. He didn't know how long the tremors lasted, but he eventually fainted. He was only subconsciously protecting this world that he loved. Later on, he smelled the scent of the outside world. It was desolate and withered, like an absurd aura left behind by the destruction of a world. Destroyed? The world of the gods? He saw that the land that she loved and hated was now only a shadow of desolation and ruin. The entire world quieted down. He laughed loudly and cried loudly. He did not know what he was laughing about, nor did he know what he was crying about. He only felt an indescribable feeling. It was as if he had lost something important, causing him to feel heart-wrenching pain. The sea was also close to being extinguished. The sea of life was dyed red with blood, and it was as quiet as a pool of stagnant water. It reflected the dark starry sky that didn't exist. He didn't know what the world of the gods had experienced, and he didn't know why the lights in the starry sky were extinguished. He could only instinctively feel that everything was over. Along with the end, he also felt the countless hopes that he had. He knew that it was time for him to taste the loneliness that she spoke of. He would recover sooner or later, and when that time came, he would look for the secret that she spoke of and snatch it away. When she appeared again, he would take it out and laugh at her, because no one had ever obtained this secret before. He had kept it all away. The wheel of time always moved very quickly. He unconsciously slept day after day, fusing himself with this world. However, he discovered that he could no longer maintain the existence of this world. He was depressed and annoyed. He looked at her secret that he had found after countless years, and couldn't help but cry. He reached out and took it. "If you have complaints, then scold me. Idiot, I'm going to use your things." Like a child throwing a tantrum, he revealed her secret. He did not know what kind of upheaval this would cause. He only wanted to protect this world, and when she came back one day, he would show this world to her. However, new guests had come to this world. They had discovered this place, and were amazed by its structure, but they didn't set foot here. They just came and left with an indescribable joy. It was really boring. The furnace of time and soul, with my life, protect this world for me. You must hold on. This world has been destroyed and reborn. Mortals will always be mortals. It's still beautiful. It's the beauty that you yearn for, but I haven't shown it to you. I still have something to say. I still owe you a farewell. Every time, you come and go as you wish. What is this? What is this? Can't you wait for me? Capricious deity. In the end, everything returned to loneliness. He even almost forgot about himself. He recalled her words again. Immortal life and immortal deities would also die. The specific situation might be referring to now. Memories flooded into Yun Nuoxing's mind like a tide. It was as if he was looking at everything from his perspective. This was a unique story in the long river of time. Perhaps it wasn't complete, or perhaps it was a little monotonous, but it was also a story between him and her. It made all sorts of feelings surge in her heart. Was he waiting for her? He had been waiting for her since such a distant era, but now, she might not be able to come here anymore. You're crying. A warm palm gently caressed his cheek. Yun Nuoxing blinked. Bean-sized teardrops rolled down and slid onto Ning Qianxue's jade-like fingers. Yun Nuoxing was stunned. Just as he was about to raise his hand to wipe away his tears, Ning Qianxue gently wiped away the tears on his face with her jade-like hands and gently rubbed his head. It's so strange. It's as if I'm experiencing his life from his perspective. He was lonely and lifeless until he met her. Then he had the thought of living. In the end, it was left unsettled. Until now, he is still waiting, but there will never be an ending, little star? Seeing that he seemed to be crying and laughing at the same time, Ning Qianxue was also stunned. Yun Nuoxing shook his head. Looking at the dark space, he let out a long sigh. That's her. She's the one and only first-generation heavenly god of destruction. She has already entered the cycle of reincarnation. How could he possibly wait for her to come back? I have never seen that figure in reality. I have only seen the image she left behind, but I can recognize her and see her again here. Am I inadvertently searching for her existence? Yun Nuoxing shook his head with a bitter smile. Ning Qianxue's expression trembled slightly. That thin figure that spoke of loneliness and contradictions. Was it that legendary figure? Rubbing Yun Nuoxing's head, Ning Qianxue sighed. She raised Mei Mao and looked ahead. The gray-haired young man had already disappeared. The heart of the world had also become an ownerless object. She had already established the connection. The collapse of this world had finally stopped. In the end, he did not manage to wait for the person he wanted to see. He waited for countless years just to say goodbye to her, just for a word of praise. In the end, he did not manage to wait for the person he wanted to see. He waited for countless years just to say goodbye to her. In the place where he disappeared, only a long and flat bead was left. It was a white bead, and in the middle was an azure ball that looked like an eyeball. So this is his original body, a mature eye of the ocean. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.